Chapter 49. The core was exposed. Han Dong knew that it was impossible for him to fight a battle of attrition with his current body condition. He seized the opportunity. He held the plague doctor's short blade in his left hand. When he saw the core-like object stuck in the stomach, Han Dong stabbed with the sword. Not only was the short blade poisonous, but it was also very sharp. The unprotected core was cracked by the sword. Visible plague energy flowed out from the tip of the sword and seeped into the core through the crack. Crack. The core was completely shattered. The sutured monster that needed to be maintained by the core was like a marionette that had lost control. Its body was limp on the ground like mud, and there was no sense of danger at all. The Dark Moon Forest was the territory of the Mystery Branch. Han Dong suspected that the crows on the branches could monitor his every move. Therefore, he did not take out the special metal syringe and did not take the risk to extract the essence of the sutured monster's cells. What's going on with this forest? Han Dong was not allowed to examine the dead, sutured monster in detail. The seemingly ordinary soil had turned into a quagmire and sucked the sutured monster into it. Will it revive? Han Dong could not be sure if the sutured monster that was sucked into the ground would revive and continue to attack them. Seizing the time, Han Dong helped Pasha up and left the forest as quickly as possible. 1 hour later, due to Han Dong's superior sense of direction, they successfully left the strange Dark Moon Forest without taking any detours. As for the possibility of revival, it did not happen. The soil took the sutured monster away, and it was most likely to be recycled. There was a gurgling stream. A clear stream that was 5 meters wide served as the border of the Dark Moon Forest. It separated the forest from the central building area. They only needed to cross an arched wooden bridge to reach the core building area of the Mystery Branch. Before crossing the wooden bridge, the building was completely covered by a thick fog. It was impossible to see the overall scale of the building. We have finally made it out. Thank you, Nicholas. The Middle Eastern girl's eyes were filled with gratitude. She even felt like crying. Without Han Dong, she would have died a long time ago. Our luck is not bad. Nicholas, let's quickly cross the wooden bridge and go to the main building to submit the test items. According to the rules of the test, if we don't submit the items, it won't be considered complete. There might be a certain amount of danger during this period. Pasha was right. They had to hurry. However, Han Dong stopped in the middle of the wooden bridge and stared at the clear stream flowing under the bridge. Why don't you give it to me? Facing Han Dong's question, Pasha was confused. What thing? You swapped the real iron box, didn't you? I don't know the exact time of the switch, but if I go to the Mystery Branch building to submit the mission, I'll most likely be judged as failing, right? For a moment, the atmosphere changed. You won't fail. You'll just lose marks. For a moment, Pasha, whose ankle had been cut open by the scissors, did not need to hold onto the guardrail of the wooden bridge. She stood in the middle of the wooden bridge without any expression on her face. Han Dong immediately turned around and held his short sword horizontally in front of him. The ghoul arm also activated a corresponding characteristic. However, Pasha's next move was not to hurt Han Dong. Instead, she took out the real iron box with the eyelid and handed it to Han Dong with both hands. To a certain extent, it meant that Pasha's real identity was not that of a scheming, treacherous student who had deliberately swapped the eyelid and enjoyed the test results alone. Instead, she was Han Dong's interference in the test this time. Pasha widened her eyes and asked curiously, "When did you find out?" Han Dong received the real iron box. After confirming that Pasha was not a treacherous person, he put away his short sword. From the beginning, I suspected that it was not a problem with your acting skills. Instead, you made a fundamental mistake. You relied on me too much. From the moment I joined the Destiny realm until now. With my physical fitness, my teammates would often dislike me at first sight. They would not even believe that I was a trainee knight. However, when you appeared, you did not suspect me at all and tried to team up with me. According to what you said, you could have continued to wait in the wooden house for the next trainee knight to come. There was no need for you to take the test with me, who had a poor physical fitness and chose a dangerous item. Maybe you divined something in advance, but you were still too active, which made me suspicious. After all, my appearance could not give the opposite sex any sense of security. Hearing Han Dong's explanation, Pasha could not help but laugh. Ha ha ha. Interesting, so there was a mistake here. Your body really could not make your teammates trust you. Serious malnutrition and a skinny body is really bad. Sai, it was a mistake. Han Dong continued. Of course, your performance was too ordinary. You did not look like a trainee knight who had experienced the Destiny realm. Therefore, I can basically confirm that you deliberately pretended to be a noob and secretly swapped the key items to enjoy the fruits of others' labor, or you were also a part of the test. Clap, clap, clap. Hearing this, Pasha began to clap. Amazing. Also, I have a question. When I lost my ability to move, why did you choose to stay? Was it because of the justice as thoughts, or you guessed my identity in advance and thought that I was also a part of the test and stole the important item? That's why you chose to stay and fight around me. Han Dong said without any scruples. It's just a choice made for my own benefit. In today's world, very few people would risk their lives for a stranger they just met, right? I just thought that saving you might give the test a higher valuation. In addition, your divination can indeed attract stitches. This will give us a chance to strike first. Pasha nodded. Well, you can report to the main building now. After saying that, the girl, Pasha Bahart, disappeared in front of Han Dong. At the same time, in the star observation room, a special person revealed a satisfied smile. Phew, I thought there would be a tough battle, but I didn't expect that I only needed to expose my identity. There are so many important points in this test. It's very troublesome if I don't pay attention. When he crossed the wooden bridge, the thick fog dissipated. It was likely that Han Dong entered the thick fog barrier and was no longer affected by the fog. It was completely different from the night teaching building that Han Dong had imagined. Standing in front of him was a huge castle tower that reached into the clouds. The medieval architectural style looked like it was made of gray stone bricks, but in fact, it might have used some special material that made the building give ordinary people a strong sense of oppression. And Han Dong realized a problem. Strange, this kind of building that reaches into the clouds should be very obvious. Why can't I see it from the periphery of the school? Could it be that they used some kind of magic to hide this building? To get close to the castle tower, he had to pass through a cemetery that was filled with dense Yin energy. The cemetery covered a large area, and there was no need to go around it. It was as if the cemetery was the castle's front yard. Just as Han Dong carefully walked on the stone path in the middle of the cemetery, a gloomy, hairy arm suddenly stretched out from one side of the cemetery. This sudden jump scare scared Han Dong, and he immediately turned around to prepare for battle. The person who crawled out was a resident of the cemetery. As he crawled out, he put on a neat formal suit and stuffed 2 spare eyeballs into his empty eye sockets. After putting his tongue and dentures into his mouth, he made a relatively friendly voice. New trainee knight, I'm your temporary butler, Aggie. Next, I'll lead you into the Dark Moon Tower. Chapter 50. A temporary butler that crawled out of the cemetery? Don't tell me that every freshman has a corresponding butler. Han Dong asked curiously. That's right. The responsibility of the Cemetery Management Committee is to receive the trainee knights, and at the same time, we're also responsible for the environmental sanitation and basic security of the Inner Island. Cemetery Management Committee. Han Dong tried his best to accept all of this as he followed the cemetery butler to the main building. There are obvious livor mortis on the surface of the body, and there are partial ulceration wounds. Without the effect of blood cells, the body is obviously in a dead state. Why can they still carry out normal physiological activities? If I have the chance and equipment, I really want to observe their cell structure. Due to the limitations of the experimental equipment, Han Dong couldn't conduct normal cell research. When he had a certain amount of funds and understood the science and technology of the Holy City, he also planned to conduct in-depth biological research on these strange and magical creatures. While heading to the main building, the cemetery butler explained some basic information about the mystery branch in detail. The main building of the mystery branch The Dark Moon Tower was remodeled and expanded 30 years ago by the department head and chief of staff of the Knights of Pestilence, Mr. Black and White. The Dark Moon was set up to completely hide the tower and the surrounding ancillary buildings. It's the tallest building in the National Royal Knight Academy. It's divided into 4 major levels and 14 important areas. Knights of Pestilence, Chief of Staff. This was the second Knight Order that Han Dong had heard of. Moreover, the position of Chief of Staff was most likely the second highest position in the Knight Order. It was obvious how high the position was. The cemetery butler said proudly, "The Knights of Pestilence are not the strongest of the 13. Although the Knights of Plague isn't the strongest of the 13, it's a special group that can't be missed. Mr. Black White's existence is extremely important to the entire Holy City." 13 Knight Orders? No wonder Barton Fergus wanted to pull me into his Black Rose Knights when he knew that I passed the 4-star newbie event. The butler continued, "With the Dark Moon Tower as the main building, the Mystery Branch also has 4 major ancillary areas: the Dark Moon Forest, the Great Cemetery, the Old Sewer, and the Deadwater Swamp. Every subsidiary area has its own reason for existence. You will naturally understand it in the future. I like to remind you to be careful of the Old Sewer and the Deadwater Swamp. If you enter recklessly, your life may be in danger." Got it. Han Dong had a general understanding of the mystic-type territories. "Excuse me, but won't you become ghouls if you stay in the graveyard?" The butler replied with a smile, "Under the protection of the Dark Moon, we won't receive any interference from outside the city walls." Dark Moon. Han Dong raised his head. A black moon, similar to a lunar eclipse, hung in the sky. The central part was black, with only a white halo outlining the circular outline. The dark moon shrouded the entire area of the Mystery Branch, hiding it from the outside world. At the same time, it also completely isolated the mental influence of the higher life forms outside the city walls. It took half an hour to cross the cemetery. Finally, he came to a side door of the Dark Moon Tower. It was sealed by a thick black iron gate. Turning the valve, opened the gate. It was not the hall of the tower, where a large number of apprentice knights gathered. In the elevator room, more than 10 old lifts were set up here. Each of the elevators corresponded to a different level of the building. In addition, a series of corresponding serial numbers had to be entered on the copper keypad before the lifts would operate normally. The lifts are a fast and safe way to transfer within the tower. It can help you pass through some dangerous areas and reach the place you want to go. I suggest that you memorize the various serial numbers of the lifts within a short period of time after you register. It can save you a lot of trouble. All right, the lifts stopped around the middle area of the tower. The cemetery butler did not continue to lead the way. He extended his hand and gestured. In front is the temporary gathering room for the apprentice knights. After you go in, hand in your test items. After all the apprentice knights in this batch have completed their test, the results of the test will be announced, self-introduction, and tutor selection will be carried out internally. Thank you. Tutor selection. As an associate professor and master's tutor in a university, Han Dong naturally knew what tutor selection was. After the postgraduate students were accepted, the teachers in the department and the postgraduate students who passed the exam sat in a conference room. They would exchange information on academic and personal interests. In the end, they would choose a suitable tutor based on the student's personality and interests. Let's take a look first. Han Dong did not know anything about the teachers in the mystery department. He only knew one at the moment. It was the department head, Mr. Black and White, that the butler had mentioned. It was not easy to follow a tutor who was at the level of a dean. Creak, he pushed open the ebony door at the end of the passage. It was a large round table in the council hall. It was a 2-story design. There was a chandelier with hundreds of branches hanging from the top. Its shape was similar to a human's arm, holding the candle with the palm. The first floor was the round table area for the apprentice knights. The huge round table of black stone could accommodate 60 students. Each student's file was kept on the table so that they could sit according to their number. The second floor's design was very strange. There were more than a dozen seats embedded in the wall, allowing the teachers to sit in the air. There were already more than 20 apprentice knights gathered here. Most of them had European faces. Even if their hair color was different, they had the same white skin. Most of them wore clothes and accessories that symbolized that they were not commoners. They were the younger generation of the middle and high-producing class families like Edward. Han Dong's commoner attire was especially eye-catching in such an occasion. Of course, those who were able to come here were all apprentice knights who had passed various tests. No one would judge a book by its cover. At most, they would secretly complain about Han Dong's physical fitness. However, it was rare to see a student like Han Dong who did not have any obvious injuries on his body. Most of the students were injured in the tests arranged by the mystery department, so were even seriously injured. Han Dong placed the metal box corresponding to the test in the corresponding groove on the table. With the sound of gears turning, the metal box sank and was handed over to the relevant department for review. Most of the people were dissatisfied with the dangerous tests given by the mystery department. Complaints could be heard everywhere. For example, there was a male student beside Han Dong. There was a large wound on his abdomen. The bleeding had been stopped by a special method. He used a special suturing technique to suture the blood vessels and external wounds. Of course, during the suturing process, he was constantly vomiting. This kind of individual test is different from the group test in Fate. If one's ability is not up to standard, it is indeed very dangerous. Chapter 51. Within an hour, all the trainee knights who chose mysticism were present. A small number of trainee knights who failed the test were not present. Han Dong scanned the group of trainee knights who were in the same batch. Other than Han Dong, there were only 2 students who could pass the mysticism test unscathed. One of them seemed to be from Arabia. He had a yellow skin tone and wore the iconic Arabian headscarf. He was a young man around 19 years old. During the waiting time, he sat cross-legged and meditated. Feeling Han Dong's gaze, he opened his eyes slightly and smiled politely. The other person was a little special. She was a girl wearing a wooden half-mask. She had short black hair, an oval face, a high-nose bridge, thick lips, and a pair of deep black eyes. She gave off a mysterious vibe. What was noteworthy was that there were all sorts of small potion bottles on the belt around her waist. Her backpack was also filled with items related to herbology. The girl took out a pestle and mortar and mixed the herbs in her backpack appropriately. She then added a special preparation on her waist and started grinding. She created a green herbal paste that could effectively disinfect and stop bleeding. It could even speed up the healing of wounds to a certain extent. Then, she distributed the herbal paste to the injured trainee knights with a friendly smile, winning the trust of many people. The aura of a leader? If there is a class system similar to the university, this girl should be the class monitor from now on. Not long after, the short-haired girl walked past Han Dong. She nodded slightly when she saw that Han Dong was not injured and smiled politely. Han Dong, who used to teach in the university, had seen countless young girls. He had never seen an outstanding student with such good looks, aura, and strength. The short-haired girl seemed to have smelled something different about Han Dong. She turned back to look at Han Dong many times. There were 37 trainee knights in the meeting room. All the trainee knights who had passed the life and death tests and invested fate points in mysticism were here. Even with the herbal paste being distributed, the students were still complaining about the tests. I heard that the apprentice knights of the Crusader faction will be tested by specialized equipment and a panel of judges. There won't be any danger, and it will be fair and just. Why is there a need to arrange such a dangerous test when there are only a few freshmen in the mystery branch? This might be the reason why so few people choose the mysticism branch. My mystery branch entrance test is based on the mystery plan written by Mr. Black and White. After 3 generations of revision, I came up with the test method. Suddenly, a powerful voice came from all around the conference room, suppressing everyone's discussion. Such a test includes the assessment of an individual's strength, temperament, IQ. After all, the newbie fate event that you experienced was completed in a party. You could have used the gaps or the deaths of others to clear the stage. It is necessary to conduct a comprehensive assessment of your individual strength. A mystic scholar had to have the ability to fight alone. Otherwise, when you join the Night Order in the future, you'll be the first to die when you go to battle outside the city walls because of the mystical scholar's special positioning. If any trainee knights are not satisfied with the test, you can submit your opinions in writing to Mr. Black and White. If your opinions are worth adopting, you may even be rewarded. As soon as he said that, the meeting room immediately fell silent. At the same time, the teachers arrived. Plague gas. The vines twined. Stars twinkled. Every teacher had appeared in a supernatural manner, sitting on a suspended chair on the second floor. An invisible pressure engulfed the entire room. Although each teacher had a completely different ability, their clothing and accessories were all different. But they all had one thing in common. They wore the iconic beak mask on their faces. This kind of mask also had the effect of goggles. The strange-looking beak mask originated from the Black Death, the largest plague in Europe in the Middle Ages. A group of people who called themselves plague doctors appeared. They wore these beak masks. The beak was filled with all kinds of spices and herbs, used to filter the so-called plague gas. It was considered an early version of a gas mask. However, the medical technology of that time could not cure the Black Death. This group of plague doctors looked very professional, but in fact they did not understand the theory of the disease. They only knew how to use folk remedies. For example, 1. They believed that the disease was caused by the stench in the air, so they lit incense to disperse the plague gas. 2. They believed that the disease was caused by the contamination in the blood, so they used the simple and crude bloodletting treatment. Not only did these treatments have no effect, they could also cause the patient to die prematurely during treatment. Since they could not save the patient, they could only collect the body. Most plague doctors would collect the bodies of the patients who died of the disease to the hospital for autopsy. In the eyes of the people, their arrival was like the arrival of the god of death. Whoever they treated would die. Over time, the oddly dressed plague doctors were rumored to be the messengers of death, and the beak mask also became an ominous symbol. The evaluation of the test has been completed. Your performance has been divided into 3 grades. Between the grades, the corresponding teachers have different rights to choose. First, we will announce the list of qualified apprentice knights. Those who are qualified will not have the right to choose. The teachers will ask you academic questions, and those who answer satisfactorily will become the personal apprentice of the teachers. What if the answer is not satisfactory? Someone immediately asked. If no teacher is willing to take you in, you will become a low-level apprentice in the mystery branch. You will not be able to obtain resources from the teachers and can only rely on yourself. If you can't stay, choose to quit school. Such an answer made many people's faces turn ugly. Then, a female teacher was responsible for reading out the names of the qualified apprentices. The apprentice knights who were read out had ugly expressions, as if they were labeled as slaves. They needed to please the teachers as much as possible so that the teachers would accept them. Otherwise, they would have no future. There were a total of 37 students, and 25 of them had their names read out. Next, we will announce the list of intermediate apprentices. Those who are evaluated as intermediate will at least be chosen by the mystery branch teachers with the title of lecturer. If your academic answers and your talent are not bad, you might be chosen by an associate professor, and very rarely by a professor. There were a total of 9 students who were evaluated as intermediate. Han Dong was not one of them. This meant that there were still 3 people who were evaluated as intermediate or above. Next, we will announce the list of excellent apprentices. Those who are evaluated as excellent have the right to choose. You can choose your first teacher and second teacher. You can also choose to give up one of them after half a year and focus on one of them. The students who are evaluated as excellent are Nerman. Nerman, overall score, 90. The Arab youth sitting cross-legged on the stone bench smiled knowingly. Mia Semenovich, overall score, 93. When the short-haired girl who had distributed the herbal ointment heard her name, she played with her hair and smiled, unable to hide the joy in her heart. However, time passed by slowly. However, the name Nicholas was never uttered, as if it was unnecessary. Chapter 52. Practical. Han Dong's name was indeed on the excellent list. But the person in charge did not read it out loud because he received a temporary notice not to read out the name, Warren Nicholas. The reason was unknown for the time being. At this time, another female teacher wearing a bird mask spoke. Now, starting from the qualified students, we will choose a mentor according to the order of the names just now. In addition, Warren Nicholas. There must be something wrong with your test. Come with me. Something wrong? The apprentice knights present thought that Han Dong, like the other two excellent students, was a gifted person who passed the test without any injuries. Now it seemed that he might have opportunistically passed the test, so he was taken away for reevaluation. Immediately, some people began to discuss. I knew it. This person's clothes are obviously from the civilian area. How could he pass the single test without any injuries? Being taken away like this, he might not even have the chance to take the test. Being able to opportunistically pass the test is also a skill, isn't it? At least we can't think of any shortcuts. The apprentice knights had different opinions about Han Dong's departure. The short-haired girl from the fighting tribe, who was proficient in herbology, smiled as she looked at Han Dong's back. She seemed to have a different opinion. The person who led Han Dong away was a female teacher. She wore a bird mask, a corset that exposed her navel, and a light long skirt. She also wore various metal accessories on her hands. From the delicate skin exposed, she was not old. Coming out of the meeting room, she took a special elevator with a star mark and went to the higher part of the tower. Warren Nicholas, excellent. Overall score 95, the best student in this year's cohort. Do you know why you were asked to come out alone and not participate in the public mentor selection? I don't know. When your name was about to be read out, Mr. Black and White suddenly issued a special request to our senior division. He asked me to take you to the Star Observation Room, which is Mr. Black and White's private office. Mr. Black and White is looking for me? Yes, but it's very strange. Mr. Black and White deliberately asked us not to read out your score. It seems that he found some problems with your test. But even if there was a problem, we should be the ones to deal with it. Mr. Black and White shouldn't worry about such trivial matters. In Mr. Black and White's eyes, apprentice knights are still fledglings that can't fly on their own. He doesn't like to interact with them. You're a rare exception. Thank you. When the elevator arrived, a passage made of resplendent starlight glass appeared in front of Han Dong. The teacher leading the way lowered his head and brushed his beak across Han Dong's cheek. He whispered into Han Dong's ear, "It's a bit strange. Mr. Black and White asked me to go to the stargazing room with you. We have to pay attention to basic etiquette later. Mr. Black and White's temperament is fickle." Yes. Han Dong was not nervous. To be honest, he had a similar experience before. When he studied abroad, he was given a very high evaluation during his doctoral interview at the University of Florence. At that time, the dean of the Life Sciences Academy asked to meet Han Dong alone after the interview. He considered letting Han Dong, an international student, stay in his research group and conduct cell research. Now, Han Dong needed to meet the highest leader of the mystery branch. The door at the end of the glass corridor had a simple diagram of the 12 houses of astrology printed on it. The door was about 5 meters high and did not look like it was prepared for humans. The female teacher seemed to have received Mr. Black and White's permission to enter. She placed her hands on the door, and with the addition of a light green power, the door was easily pushed open by her alone. Plague, when Han Dong saw the female teacher's ability, he seemed to understand why Mr. Black and White asked him to come with his teacher. When he pushed open the door, he had a strange feeling of stepping into the galaxy. The floor and walls were made of a type of flowing stone. Inside, there were small dots that looked like stars moving slowly. The hemispherical room created a strange feeling of the deep space of the universe. Half of the room was occupied by giant astronomical telescopes. A black-haired man in a white robe was sitting under the telescope and looking at the galaxy. "Mr. Black and White, as per your orders, I brought this trainee knight to you. The teacher selection is still going on, and there are many good students this year. If I don't go now, he might be taken away by other teachers." The female teacher was still very concerned about the students. Her title was only a lecturer, and she lacked competitiveness with professors. She urgently needed talented students to work for her. Well, Pasha, don't worry about the students. I'll arrange it. Have a seat. Pasha, Han Dong was stunned. The Middle Eastern girl he met when he passed through the Dark Moon Forest also had this name. As soon as Mr. Black and White stood up, the originally galaxy-like room changed instantly. The stars converged and turned into a room with a strong European aristocratic atmosphere. The astronomical telescope was blocked. The hemispherical room shrank and turned into an ordinary rectangular room. There was a leather sofa, a kerosene lamp, and a black iron fireplace. It wasn't just a matter of optical refraction. Everything in this room was real. Han Dong couldn't understand such a scene change at all. The female teacher, named Pasha, seemed to be used to it. Since Mr. Black and White said so, she could only stay here. Pasha and Han Dong sat together on the leather sofa and took off their beak masks. She had healthy, wheat-colored skin. She had shoulder-length black hair. She wore light black eyeshadow. She had 3 metal nose rings on her high nose. Her slightly raised cheekbones added a beauty's temperament, making her more attractive to the eyes. This image reminded Han Dong of the Middle Eastern girl he teamed up with in the Dark Moon Forest. She looked exactly like an adult. Could it be that all of this is Mr. Black and White's arrangement? Han Dong didn't dare to make wild guesses. The result would be known soon. Mr. Black and White walked over and sat on a single leather chair, facing the two of them. Mr. Black and White was wearing a black smiley face mask, so his face couldn't be seen. Pasha, you haven't seen this kid's test process, right? Under the mask, there was a double voice that was forceful, elegant, and magnetic. From the basic understanding of the data, he defeated the stitched object head-on, eliminated interference, passed the test in a short time, and his temperament conformed to the mysticism values. He received an excellent rating of 95 points. It's not that simple. Take a look at the video. Mr. Black and White took out a crystal ball from his sleeve. The whole test process was recorded inside. When Lecturer Pasha saw the little girl covered in dirt, she was shocked. She couldn't help but touch the scar on her ankle. Chapter 53. Mr. Black and White. I don't understand. Why did you copy my previous test experience? Mr. Black and White casually drew 2 intersecting lines of stars in the air. Intersecting lines of fate. When I was watching the stars last night, I accidentally saw your intersecting lines of fate. I can't see the future of the intersecting lines, so I did this on purpose. What do you think? Are you satisfied with this test result? Lecturer Pasha. A complete copy. Pasha didn't know how Mr. Black and White copied her past experience. Pasha's face didn't change much, but her heart was a little shaken. She used to be like this. Back then, she didn't have any combat skills. She wanted to team up with other apprentice knights to pass the test, but her ankle was cut, and she lost her ability to move while passing through the Dark Moon Forest. Her teammates didn't hesitate at all and abandon her. When she was attacked by monsters, she thought she was going to die, but when she woke up, she was already in the infirmary of the Wizard Tower. She failed the test, but the mystery branch was very short of people, so she stayed. However, no instructor was willing to teach her with such a result. Without any resources, Pasha persevered in the darkest place with her unique talent and perseverance. In the end, she was acknowledged by Mr. Black and White and became a member of the Knights of Pestilence. She stayed in the academy as a teacher. It sounded like a very inspirational story, but not many people knew how much pain Pasha endured and how much despair she went through to climb up from the bottom. She definitely thought of suicide more than 10 times. In the test screen in the crystal ball, Mr. Black and White deliberately deleted Han Dong's last answer. Overall, it looked like Han Dong was willing to stay to protect Pasha and pass the test together. Okay, Pasha maintained a serious expression as a teacher and returned the crystal ball to Mr. Black and White. Mr. Black and White, you mean that I'll teach this excellent apprentice knight? Yes, you'll be the first instructor, and I'll be the second. What? Sir, you said the wrong order, right? Pasha thought she had misheard. If they were to adopt the dual mentorship model, no matter what, she would be the second mentor. How could Mr. Black and White be behind her? I'm just a figurehead. Occasionally, I'll guide you on the details. Pasha, you are Nicholas's main mentor. You are in charge of introducing him to a deeper understanding of mysticism. Both you and Nicholas are proficient in plague, and because of the intersecting lines of fate, it's very suitable for you to lead him in the early stages. Nicholas, are you willing? When Mr. Black and White turned around, Han Dong quickly replied, yes. Mr. Black and White continued asking, you're only good at plague-type abilities? This question made Han Dong tremble in fear. Especially when he stared at the black mask, he had a feeling that his heart was being seen through. Han Dong was very worried that in front of such a person, his secret would be exposed. Yes. Han Dong maintained his composure and nodded. Then there's no problem. Although there are a few masters in the mysticism branch who are proficient in plague, Lecturer Pasha is definitely the most suitable to guide you. As for resources, as long as you perform well enough, I'll directly allocate resources to you. Thank you, Mr. Black and White. Han Dong knew very well how important this sentence was. The dean would directly allocate resources. In other words, as long as Han Dong met the expected requirements, the department would provide him with whatever he wanted. Pasha, do you have any questions? If not, I'll talk to Nicholas later and have him fill out the relevant information in your office. No problem. When Pasha got up and left, she deliberately turned her head to look at the weak freshman Han Dong. She had mixed feelings. Click. When the door closed, only Han Dong and Mr. Black and White were left in the room. Can I take a closer look at your right arm? Under such circumstances, could Han Dong refuse? He could only stretch out his arm. Yes, it's a pure ghoul arm without any sutures. It's as if it grew naturally on your body. Even the suturing professor in my department can't do such a flawless suture. Mr. Black and White's words made Han Dong break out in a cold sweat. The secret in your body is more troublesome than any trainee knight I've ever seen. I can't even divine or observe your future. However, if even I can't see through your disguise, no one in the Holy City can. You're not Warren Nicholas, are you? No, but I'm also a human. Han Dong's answer was very decisive. In front of such a person, hiding anything would only worsen the situation. Han Dong immediately shifted his focus to the word human to emphasize his position. A very smart answer, but you don't have to worry too much. No matter what you are, as long as your position is correct, I'll treat you as a normal trainee knight. Now, I need you to answer a question. What is your position? What my nature is what my position is. Okay. Mr. Black and White continued to ask, congratulations on becoming a member of the mystery branch. Do you want to announce your results on the bulletin boards on each floor? If possible, you don't have to announce it. Just announce that I passed the test. Just as Mr. Black and White was worried, it's best if I don't attract too much attention. Well, you're quite capable to be able to hide from the interviewers and investigators. Now that you're my student, I'll provide you with any resources you need as long as you can reach your goal. Speaking of which, I have to tell you about a short-term and important goal. Okay, Han Dong listened very carefully. After becoming a trainee knight, you still have to go to the Destiny realm regularly. Every branch has a certain target. If you can't reach it, the allocation of resources in the branch will be relatively reduced. Although the target for the mystery branch isn't high, due to the small number of new students, the next Destiny realm won't have enough people. You need to prepare in a short period of time. A short period of time? How long? About 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Han Dong planned to spend half a semester studying the mystery branch seriously and learn some basic skills. After learning the ability to conceal and explain summoned creatures, he would go to the Destiny realm. At that time, he would be able to summon Miss Chun-Li to help him. The current situation put Han Dong in a very difficult position. That's a short period of time. It is indeed very short. But if you agree, I can grant you a wish as long as it doesn't exceed a certain limit. Mr. Black and White, can I give you an answer in a week? Han Dong wanted to see his learning progress in a week before making a decision. No, I have to make a decision now. I have a condition. Say it. I hope that in these 2 weeks, in addition to learning the plague branch from Lecturer Pasha, I can also learn related skills related to summoning. Chapter 54. His position and identity had been revealed. Mr. Black and White only cared about Han Dong's position. Through astrology, he could roughly see Han Dong's nature and knew that he was on the side of humans. Therefore, he did not ask how Han Dong came to be and would even help him hide his identity to a certain extent. However, Han Dong still had some reservations. When he talked about wanting to learn summoning abilities, he did not let Chun-Li out, because there was an important reason, and that was that Chun-Li came from the Destiny realm. Mr. Black and White might be able to observe Chun-Li's origin through astrology. Before Han Dong figured out the Destiny realm, it was not good to expose it. You want to learn summoning abilities? Yes. Han Dong had already thought of an excuse. I saw the stitches in the test before, and I feel that this kind of corpse control is quite good. Although my body is supported by a ghoul arm, my overall body is still not very good. If I have a summoned creature to help me, it can greatly make up for my shortcomings. Mr. Black and White said, the control school is more proficient in summoning and controlling creatures, spirits, and ghosts. The mystery school is not as good as them in this aspect. 2 weeks is not a long time. If you want to learn, you must first have a good foundation in plague, and then come to me to learn summoning. If you get distracted and fail to accomplish anything in these 2 weeks, you will die without a burial ground in the next Destiny realm. The Destiny realm, as an apprentice knight, is much more difficult than a novice knight. You should understand, right? Yes. Mr. Black and White continued. As for your ghoul arm, you can explain it to outsiders in 4 words. Plague variant. No one will look into it, because the mystery school is able to perfectly sew a ghoul arm onto a living creature. Okay, when you have a sufficient understanding of mysticism, have sufficient knowledge reserves and abilities, and can fully explain the relevant abilities you possess, you can no longer worry about the problem of exposure. You can announce your name to the holy city. Keeping a low profile could save you a lot of trouble. Fame and reputation could also bring you unimaginable benefits and convenience. He had to weigh the pros and cons of the two. No matter what, he had to maintain his position. For the sake of humanity's freedom, I'll give up everything I have. All right. Thank you, Mr. Black and White. Thank you again. With Mr. Black and White's help, the chances of Han Dong's identity being exposed were very low. He just needed to be more careful. As long as you complete Pasha's daily request, you can come to the stargazing room to find me at any time. I'll be there all day. By the way, Mr. Black and White, how do I get to Ms. Pasha's office? Following Han Dong's question, a strange scene occurred. Black Mask spat out a black feather from its mouth. The crow feather floating in the air turned into a black crow and stopped on Han Dong's shoulder. It will take you there. In a short time, you have to familiarize yourself with the detailed structure of the Dark Moon Tower. Don't waste too much time on it. All right, the conversation ended here. The 2-week time limit had been set. Han Dong had to save every second. He had to have a detailed plan for the rest of the time. After Han Dong left, the room changed back to the appearance of space. When Mr. Black and White got up and walked to the astronomical telescope, he took out a white mask and looked at the black mask he was wearing. At this time, the lips of the white mask squirmed on their own and made an ethereal sound. Crow, you're a little abnormal today. All along, you've been uninterested in these apprentice knights. Even the suturing genius who got 99 points 2 years ago, you only heard about him from the side. Why are you so concerned about this kid today? The black mask said, since even your astrology can't see through the apprentice knight, I'll naturally take a gamble. If he can really adapt to everything in 2 weeks, learn the basic plague skills, and even learn some beginner summoning skills from me. Once he can successfully pass the true meaning of the Destiny space, I can fully cultivate him. The white mask said in surprise, just because I can't see through this apprentice knight's fate? That's right. Since you can't see through it, it means that his fate might not belong to our world. It's necessary to take a gamble on this. It's just a waste of some resources. As long as he's on the side of humans, we won't lose anything. Who knows what will happen in the future? The conversation ended. Mr. Black and White changed his mask. After changing into the white mask, his temperament and walking posture changed. He walked slowly to the astronomical telescope and continued to observe the universe. Han Dong, who took the elevator down, showed a rare smile. The biggest stone in his heart was finally put down. In this world full of magic and psionic abilities, there were countless people with special abilities. Han Dong might be able to fool them once, but he might not be able to fool them a second time. Now, the highest authority in the mystery branch acknowledged Han Dong's existence. The future will be much easier. 2 weeks. The destiny space will descend again. The first person Han Dong thought of was the apprentice knight, Cass Maldini, who had formed a temporary team with him a few days ago to complete the ghoul incident. After receiving the bounty, Cass had made it clear that he wanted to continue forming a team with Han Dong, including the subsequent bounty missions and the destiny space. I can contact Cass in advance and continue to use the fake name Andwa. I can pretend to be an apprentice knight who has been in the Mystery Academy for a year and form a team with him. The Crusader who has already obtained 3 destiny points should know more. Under the guidance of the crow, the elevator descended to the first floor of the tower. Immediately after, he needed to take another special elevator. The walls of the elevator were stained with sticky fungus. Teacher Pasha's office isn't in the tower. She mainly studies the plague. Could it be? At this moment, Han Dong suddenly remembered the mystery branch subsidiary area that the cemetery butler had mentioned. Old Sewer. According to the cemetery butler, this subsidiary area was dangerous and recommended Han Dong not to go there. It descended about 100 meters. The elevator reached the bottom. An underground area filled with pale yellow light appeared in front of Han Dong. The pale yellow light didn't come from the kerosene lamp. It was a large number of fluorescent bacteria that stuck to the walls of the sewer. The largest luminous tissue was even the size of an arm, like a giant pustule. The spores floating in the air then spread the yellow light to various areas of the sewer. Colorful fungi could be seen in the cracks of the walls. Even some of the rats that wander around here had mushrooms growing on their bodies. Their bodies were also larger than the average rat. Some mutated insects had bodies and strange postures that were beyond the understanding of ordinary people. Ordinary people will only become nutrients for the fungi in this environment. Just as Han Dong was thinking about how to step into this area, caw, caw, the crow on his shoulder cried out. The crow transformed into a living bird mask and took the initiative to wear it on Han Dong's face. The crow feather transformed into a black robe that could isolate the fungi in the old sewer from the outside. Chapter 55. What kind of ability is this? When the crow transformed into the bird-beak doctor suit, Han Dong's reverence for Mr. Black and White increased by another level. A crow feather spat out from his mouth could transform into an intelligent crow, and it could even evolve into a suit. At the same time, Han Dong also took out the plague doctor's dagger. With this outfit, he really looked like a medieval doctor of death. Taking out the weapon of destiny, Han Dong only wanted to test if the weapon had a unique effect in this special environment. When Han Dong gently shook the dagger, he found that the fungal spores floating in the air automatically gathered and covered the blade, increasing the damage of the next attack. In addition, perhaps because Han Dong was holding a special dagger or wearing a special birdbeak doctor suit, the creatures in the old sewer also tried to avoid Han Dong as much as possible. According to the guidance signs on the surface covered with mushrooms, bypassing the complicated sewer passages, they crossed a pool of bubbling, skull-shaped bacteria that emitted poisonous gas, turning corners where giant spotted mushrooms grew. Finally, he arrived in front of an iron door with the sign Fungus and Mushroom Research Lab, Pasha Bahart. Han Dong used 100% of the ghoul's power to be able to turn the hydraulic turntable and open the iron door. Passing through an isolation passage and spraying a large amount of disinfectant, Han Dong finally arrived at the first mentor's office. It was simple and clean. A desk with all kinds of documents and potions. A wooden bookcase stood against the wall. A large number of books about plague were listed in it. Strange magic circles and drawings related to the human body were pasted on the wall. There was also a wooden bed placed in the corner of the wall. For the time being, he did not see any experimental equipment used for fungus research. Thinking about it, the laboratory should be separated from the personal office. Teacher Pasha wore a pair of copper-framed glasses and was writing some information in front of the wooden table. When Han Dong came in, she did not turn around. She only asked coldly, "Why did Mr. Black and White ask you to stay behind?" Han Dong briefly explained the situation. When he mentioned the 2-week time limit, Teacher Pasha immediately stopped writing and turned her head with a frown. "What? 2 weeks? To send you to your death?" Pasha looked at it from her own experience. In order to enter the real destiny realm, even if it wasn't a semester, it would at least take half a semester to prepare. Only by learning and grasping the most basic of mysticism would he have the capital to enter the destiny realm. During this period, he would also have to prepare the best resources and adjust himself to the best state. Otherwise, only death would await him. Ms. Pasha calmed herself down and continued speaking. "This is also Mr. Black and White's arrangement. He must have his reasons. Time is too short. Let's begin the study of the plague today. Don't go back to the student dormitory for the next 2 weeks. Just stay in the office." Pasha pointed at the wooden bed. "Then what about you, teacher? I'll sleep with you." Han Dong was stunned. His thoughts were affected to a certain extent. Pasha quickly corrected him. "What I mean is, you sleep on this wooden bed. I'll sleep in the break room next door." Teacher Pasha, do you have any other students under your name?" When Pasha was asked this, she coughed twice to hide her embarrassment. "Ahem, I have high expectations for my students. Many of them are unable to adapt to the harsh environment of the old sewers. Even if they have a certain level of talent in the study of the plague, they are unwilling to come down here to study. They prefer to stay in the wizard tower and follow the professors. In fact, it could be summed up in a simple sentence: low qualifications, poor environment, and high expectations. How could they recruit students like this?" In this way, Han Dong could be considered Pasha Bahart's first student and the first member of the research team. At this moment, Pasha caught a glimpse of the dagger in Han Dong's left hand. When she saw the green aura covering the blade, she was shocked. "A plague attribute destiny weapon. Where did you get it?" "I hope Teacher Pasha can keep this a secret. I hid this matter when I entered the school. Plague Doctor's Dagger, a hidden reward from the first Destiny event." Hidden event. Pasha knew what it meant. Destiny events were extremely dangerous. To discover and take the time to complete a hidden event in such a dangerous environment required great personal ability. Pasha had never seen anyone who could obtain a Destiny weapon in a newbie event. Not bad. Pasha tried her best to suppress her surprise. She had never heard of a trainee knight who could complete a hidden event in a newbie event. She also gradually understood why Mr. Black and White paid special attention to Han Dong. Just like this, the two began to chat about some basic information to get to know each other. When they talked about Han Dong's understanding of the plague, Han Dong brought out part of his memories about pathology and mycology. To be honest, when it came to basic scientific knowledge, Han Dong was definitely better than Lecturer Pasha when it came to understanding fungi and bacteria. However, what Han Dong needed to learn now was not basic knowledge, but how to use the power of the plague. Therefore, when Han Dong explained his understanding of the plague, he held back. He only talked about some superficial knowledge. You have some knowledge. You can save a lot of time," Pasha admitted. Next, just as Han Dong was about to explain the ghoul's arm, a voice suddenly rang out. He changed into a crow again and spoke in Mr. Black and White's voice. He directly explained Han Dong's situation and asked Pasha to keep it a secret with his identity as the dean. This way, Han Dong did not have to explain. "Okay, Mr. Black and White, only 2 weeks?" "Yes, within 2 weeks, make sure Nicholas is proficient in using the ghoul arm. At the same time, let him use the true power of the Destiny weapon. Also, teach him a basic play control technique. Okay, after the communication, the crow looked at Han Dong with its black eyes. I thought about it and decided to use this crow as your goggles. After the soul binding with you, the crow will completely break away from my connection. It can switch between the living crow and the beak costume on its own. Thank you, Mr. Black and White. After saying that, the crow flew to Han Dong's wrist. It used its sharp beak to poke Han Dong's fingertip and drank a drop of blood to establish a permanent connection. At the same time, a black feather mark appeared on the back of Han Dong's hand. He could control this special crow with his mind. This meant that the crow had become Han Dong's possession and had completely cut off its connection with Mr. Black and White. At this moment, the serious atmosphere in the office suddenly changed. Lecturer Pasha, who was sitting dignified and smiling all the time, suddenly revealed a strange smile. She deliberately messed up her hair. From the bottom drawer of her desk, she took out a bottle of homemade white wine and 2 clean wine glasses. She casually shook off her high heels. She even propped her long legs up on the desk. After a deputy leader finished monitoring the situation of the staff who were slacking off, her moist tongue slid between her lips as if she couldn't wait to taste the wine. She no longer looked like a dignified teacher. Coupled with Pasha's high-quality face and beautiful figure, this image immediately gave off a lot of sexy attributes. She poured a full glass of wine and handed it to Han Dong. Do you want a drink? Alcohol is my savior who allowed me to survive in the old sewer. I've never believed in religion. I only believe in alcohol. Chapter 56. What bullsh asterisk T test? What bullsh asterisk T night rules? What bullsh asterisk T black and white? No, Mr. Black and White is very good to me. I can't scold him burp. No one cares about me, but I still became a knight and a teacher of the mystery branch. Her true nature was exposed. After drinking, Pasha Harba was a completely different person from before. Even Han Dong was stunned. Moreover, this white wine also had a big problem. It actually tasted like white wine with a bitter taste. Han Dong suspected that the white wine's alcohol content was above 50 degrees, and it really had a certain antiseptic effect. Drinking it would make him feel like he was going to kill someone. Pasha, who was blushing, hugged Han Dong with her arms, and their faces were almost touching. Why don't you drink? I brewed this myself. If you don't drink it, you're disrespecting me, a genius teacher in plague science. As mentioned earlier, Pasha's figure could be considered as a model's. Han Dong had never experienced such intimate contact with a woman of the same age. Even though Han Dong's body was very weak, he still had the necessary physiological reaction. Teacher, with my body, if I drink wine of this alcohol content, I might directly die. How can you be so weak? Let me check. After saying that, she didn't allow Han Dong to resist. With an inhuman strength, Pasha directly took off Han Dong's shirt. There were many dents on his yellowed skin, and the ribs were clearly visible. Her delicate palm moved back and forth on the surface of his body, especially the touch of her fingertips, which made Han Dong's mind a mess. Burp, your body is too weak, right? If you drink it, you might really die. How boring. My first student can't even drink with me. After this intimate contact, Han Dong, a reserved man in his 30s, couldn't help but blush. However, although your body is weak, your ability isn't weak. You're not like me back then. She drank too much. In addition, she was always alone in the old sewer for research and self-improvement. Loneliness was inevitable. Han Dong was her first student, and Han Dong's special test reminded her of some things in the past. The effect of alcohol made Pasha dig out some things that she had suppressed in her heart. She loosened her arms around Han Dong. Pasha returned to her desk with a bottle of wine. Due to her body heating up from drinking, Pasha actually took out a pair of scissors from the drawer and trimmed her black trousers into a pair of shorts on the spot. Her slender and fair legs were propped up on the desk. However, there was a small flaw on this seemingly perfect handicraft. Han Dong noticed that there was a cut scar on Pasha's ankle that was difficult to remove. Pasha went on drinking and talked about the past. Back then, I wasn't treated as well as you were. entering the mystery branch with a failed test result and with a shortage of people. Huh. No teacher would be willing to take in a useless student like me. Han Dong also recalled his previous test experience. The setting of the interference item was based on Pasha's previous test. Han Dong asked curiously, "Teacher Pasha, you were originally good at divination, right?" Divination is a very important branch of the mystery branch. It can predict the future and know the enemy's location. Did you give it up because there was no one to take you in? Pasha replied with an indifferent expression, "Yes, divination requires a large amount of resources as a foundation, a large number of books to read, and a divination teacher to guide you. A useless student like me couldn't understand divination through any channels, and I couldn't even get a share of the resources. If I insisted on following my heart, I would have died in the destiny space sooner or later. The best choice was to give up the opportunity to study in the academy and go to the civilian district to become a sheriff. If I was lucky, I could find a good job in the church or the union. It wasn't easy for me to climb out of the civilian district. I didn't want to go back just like that. The only thing I could do was to find another way. I chose the most difficult and dangerous field of epidemiology. At that time, very few people came to the old sewer. Only some professors would take samples here, and I took advantage of this opportunity. Now that I think about it, it wasn't easy to live until now. Hee hee, thanks to this wine." While speaking, Pasha began to drink again. As she talked about the past, unforgettable images flashed through her mind. Due to insufficient protection, it led to a subcutaneous fungal infection. At the most serious time, there were even small umbrella-shaped fungi growing on the surface of her skin. She also had the experience of being infected by the plague. If it wasn't for the Mystery Academy's special treatment for the plague, she would have died long ago. These memories kept flashing in her mind. A nosebleed mixed with bacteria flowed out of Pasha's nostrils. She quickly wiped the blood with a tissue. Her body also felt a little uncomfortable. She shook her dizzy head and looked at Han Dong. "You can find some books related to epidemiology in the bookcase and self-study for a while. I'm a little uncomfortable." Immediately after, Lecturer Pasha pushed open the iron door of the lounge and walked in swaying. Han Dong was still a little worried about his first instructor. Unexpectedly, as soon as Pasha entered, she directly fell on the big, soft bed. Simultaneously, a series of loud snoring sounds that didn't match her body shape came out. She fell asleep instantly. Han Dong felt a little helpless with such an instructor. She said she would seize the time to study, but in the end, she drank too much and fell asleep. Han Dong quietly entered the lounge, covered Pasha with a blanket, and took the white tissue in her hand that she had just wiped away the nosebleed. Even without a microscope, he could see the bacteria community mixed in the blood with the naked eye. If it was an ordinary person with such a high amount of bacteria in their blood, they would have died long ago, right? Could it be that a bacterial ecosystem has formed in Lecturer Pasha's body? Is this the result of specializing in the epidemiology? This situation made Han Dong even more curious about the epidemiology. After leaving the lounge, he took out the books related to the epidemiology from the bookshelf and began self-study. Some of the concepts about the epidemiology in the books were different. They fused supernatural knowledge with the basic knowledge Han Dong understood. In the first chapter, they began to talk about the knowledge related to plague control. Moreover, on the first page, Han Dong learned a very important concept. Due to the distribution of fate points, the concept of the unknown energy ball appeared in his mind. The professional term given in the book was seed. For a time, Han Dong was completely immersed in the textbook, Epidemiology, Complete Edition, published by the National Royal Knight Academy and written by the former dean of the Mystery Branch. Han Dong had a unique talent when it came to reading scientific research papers. Chapter 57. Its full academic name was The Seed of Destiny, The Seed of Destiny. It was called Seed for the rest of the book. When a novice passes a destiny event for the first time and chooses their main class, points will be distributed. The instrument of destiny will complete the seed in the main body. Different main classes will have different corresponding seeds. In addition, each person's personality is different and their future development is different. This will also affect the internal structure of the seed. The seed is the foundation of a novice knight. It means how the individual will develop in the future. At the same time, it is also an energy storage tank. Every time a mysterious ability is used, including divination, stitching, and plague, a part of the seed's energy will be extracted. As the fate points are distributed, the seed will be able to store more and more energy. When a number of fate points invested in the main class reaches 5, the seed will sprout and enter the next stage. The current chapter is the basics and will not be explained in detail. There are 2 ways to replenish the seed's energy. One is to absorb it from the same source. For example, if you're proficient in plague-type abilities, you can absorb energy from organisms that are infected with diseases. The other is to replenish oneself. For example, a divination-type ability can absorb energy from the stars in the universe at a specific time. With the development of abilities or the wearing of special destiny equipment, more energy replenishment methods can be obtained. For example, forced absorption, automatic recovery, and other abilities. Special note: in the Novice Knight stage, once the seed's energy is exhausted, it will not be able to use any magic or abilities. Please pay special attention to the remaining energy in the process of battle. The opening chapter of Plague Studies gave a detailed explanation of the energy in Han Dong's head. The Seed of Destiny. According to the book, once 5 fate points are invested, the seed will sprout and grow into the so-called talent tree. Of course, it is also possible that there is a transition between the seed and the talent tree. Han Dong finally understood the meaning of the mysterious energy in his head. Next, he needed to learn how to use the seed's energy. Currently, I can use the dagger as a medium to convert the seed's energy into the plague attribute and shoot out from the tip of the dagger. Let's continue learning. Han Dong's way of reading was very strange. He needed to prepare a notebook at the same time. The study book was placed on his left hand and the notebook on his right. With a pen in his right hand would automatically record keywords and important sentences in the notebook to deepen his understanding and memory of the important knowledge. Original text of the book: Plague was one of the most offensive branches of mysticism, dedicated to the research of highly pathogenic microorganisms. Most of them were fungi, with very few plague researchers touching on bacteria or the more elusive viruses. Due to the limitations of modern scientific development, the development of microscopy was only at the stage of light microscopy. It was difficult to analyze cells, let alone observe viruses. Once the knights learned how to control the fungus, they would be able to apply the plague attribute to every attack they made. When they cut the enemy apart, the plague would further inflict damage to their bodies. At the same time, he could also control the fungi to investigate and explore a small area. Or they could specialize in fungal poison gas and use their staffs to attack from a distance, ignoring the enemy's outer armor and directly attacking the body. Next, we're going to talk about plague control. Before entering the school, beginners had to be divided into 2 categories. The first category belonged to novice knights who had never come into contact with the plague. Before learning, you need to place yourself in the presence of pathogenic fungi, exceeding 300 Simpson's number, dimensionless unit used to measure the number of pathogenic fungi in unit space. These beginners had to infect themselves with at least 3 types of subcutaneous or systemic fungal diseases. They did not use any external medical means. They only relied on the energy of the body and the seeds to adapt to the diseases. In this painful process, the body gradually adapted to the fungi and formed a diverse fungal environment in the body. It was called fungal body for short. Once such a body was achieved, the subsequent plague training could begin. The second category belonged to novice knights who had come into contact with the plague, had been seriously infected by the plague, and healed themselves, or carried the plague ability. These beginners already had a hidden or partial fungal body and needed to be activated. The specific method was determined according to their own condition. If it could not be activated, please use the first entry method. In general, entry was to form a fungal body. Although Ghoul's arm and Plague Doctor's dagger belonged to the plague category, Han Dong did not intend to just hang on a tree. Not to mention the 5 major professions. In mysticism alone, there were plague, divination, suture, and even some academic branches that Han Dong did not know about. Han Dong, who had the ability to collect cell essence, could fully consider multidimensional development. Plague. I only need the right arm to have this ability. I still have other plans for the other parts of the body. Han Dong had a strict plan for the future and was very clear about what he should do at this stage. Ghoul's arm already matches the description of the plague body in the book. I only need to focus on this arm in practice. After completing the detailed reading of basic plague control, Han Dong changed into the bird beak doctor's suit and deliberately exposed his right arm. He returned to the outer area of the old sewer, the fungal community covering the wall, the bacterial spores floating in the air. Wasn't this the best place for play training? He slowly raised his right arm and recalled the relevant explanations in the book. Han Dong focused on his arm and tried to build a connection with the fungal plague in the environment. The energy of this seed began to slowly deplete. In the office, lecturer Pasha, who was drunk and had caused the bacterial colonies in her body to become chaotic, slowly woke up after adjusting her body condition in her sleep. Where did Nicholas go? Pasha stretched her body and walked out of the lounge. At a glance, she saw the open plague books and dense English notes on the desk. She followed the lingering scent in the air and walked out of the office. The scene in the old sewer made Pasha's eyes widen. She was no longer sleepy. Han Dong stood 3 meters away from her. With Han Dong as the center, the mycelium on the ground wrapped around his trousers. There were even a few small mushrooms growing on the end of his leather shoes. The most shocking thing was Han Dong's right arm. The pores on the skin of his arm were in an open shape. It was similar to oral breathing. The open pores were slowly absorbing the fungal spores in the air to replenish the energy consumed during the plague control. After Pasha came to the old sewer and achieved the initial stage of plague body, it took her 3 days to learn the basic plague control. Han Dong, on the other hand, completed all of this in the few hours she was sleeping. Chapter 58. Pasha was a little surprised at first, but after taking a closer look, she found that there was a problem. This kid hasn't fully formed the plague physique yet. He's just using this ghoul arm to control the plague. That's right. It's impossible to fully form the plague physique and master the plague in 2 weeks. Just like Mr. Black and White said, just focus on his arm and carry out targeted training. They waited for about half an hour. All kinds of bacteria slowly faded from Han Dong's body. This period of time passed in the blink of an eye for Han Dong, who was completely immersed in plague control. Pasha held a wine bottle in one hand and waved at Han Dong with the other. Not bad. You've learned the most basic plague control by yourself. Come here and let me take a closer look at your arm. Okay, in the following time. Thus, Han Dong followed Pasha and learned how to use plague knowledge. Pasha's unique understanding of plague control was something that couldn't be found in books. After a day of solo instruction, Pasha was exhausted. This underground office had been transformed into a personal living area by Pasha. There was even a bathroom with a water pipe from inside the tower. You're not going to rest. Lecturer Pasha didn't care too much. She walked out of the bathroom with a towel wrapped around her and a wine bottle in one hand. She walked to the dormitory and found that Han Dong had no intention of sleeping at all. He was reading seriously at the desk, and his right hand was taking quick notes at the same time. Han Dong didn't even turn his head to look at such a beautiful scenery. Well, Teacher Pasha, you can sleep first. I'm used to solving the problem before sleeping. Smack! All of a sudden, a bottle of red wine fell on the table and interrupted Han Dong's thoughts. Low-alcohol wine. Your body should be fine. You're my student, so you have to learn to drink. Otherwise, the next few years will be boring. Drink a little when you're reading. It'll also have a refreshing effect. Okay. Han Dong's thoughts were interrupted, so he turned his head and glanced over. His line of sight happened to be at the same level as the indescribable part below the neck. How much could a towel wrap around? Moreover, Han Dong had never been so close to a girl in 30 years, let alone a young female teacher who had a good figure and appearance and was only wrapped in a towel. For a moment, Han Dong's mind was a little blank. He quickly turned his head. So you're focused on reading. Remember to drink. I'm going to sleep. Seeing Han Dong's shy reaction, Pasha left as she wished. The indescribable beauty took root in Han Dong's mind and refused to dissipate, affecting his thoughts. Suddenly, Han Dong used the substitution method to change his state of mind. Let's not. Wait a minute. Wasn't the outline just 3? If the dimensionless parameter of pestilence constitution is 300, then Han Dong completed his thought process and continued to immerse himself in the sea of knowledge. This kid, Lecturer Pasha, leaned against the door of the lounge and stole glances at Han Dong while drinking. Maybe he's really different. Han Dong was a straight-A student. Once he started studying, it was common for him to forget about food and sleep. Staying up late and working overtime was nothing. Once he felt that his spirit could not keep up, he would fall into a deep sleep. He was very good at controlling his studies. He maintained a high intensity of study and training. In the blink of an eye, a week had passed in the old sewer. National Royal Knight Academy, Adventurers Guild. Every day, there would be an endless stream of trainee knights coming here. Most of them were above 2 stars, meaning that they were allocated 2 fate points. The following abbreviations will be used as such. They checked to see if there were any missions suitable for them. There were 2 types of missions. One was the completely clear category. Professionals had already conducted a detailed inspection of the mission location. All the detailed mission information was written on the bounty list. There would not be any major deviation. There were fewer missions of this type. Once it was announced, it would be snatched up in an instant. The other was the unclear category. Most of them were sudden emergencies. There was only some superficial information from the local public security bureau. The bounty list that was drawn up at the last minute would often have major deviations. There were more missions of this type. Due to the large variability in difficulty, there were relatively few people who accepted them. The last mission that Cass and Han Dong completed together belonged to the second category. Today, 3-star Crusader Cass Maldini came here again. The silver armor on his body had been completely repaired. However, the purpose of this visit was not only to see if there were any suitable missions. He also wanted to meet a group of friends. After all, the next Destiny Realm would open in a week. 3-star Crusader, a silver-level adventurer, Cass was already a famous trainee knight. He temporarily occupied the private room on the 2nd floor of the Adventurers Guild and waited for the arrival of his friends. Brother Cass. Not long after, a blonde girl with wavy hair knocked on the door and entered. Behind her was a holy crystal staff that was taller than her height. 3-star Library, a girl who was good at holy light spells. She had once cleared the Destiny Realm with Cass. At first glance, this girl was more of an auxiliary healer. When the girl saw the handsome blonde knight Cass, her cheeks immediately blushed. Fea, are you used to using the weapon of destiny? Fea stuck out her tongue. Of course, I can now do 3 points in a line and cast holy light spells through the enhancement of the staff. Then, Fea sat on the seat next to Cass with some embarrassment. The two of them had worked together in 2 Destiny realms and had complete trust in each other, just as Fea was about to whisper something. Dong, dong, dong. There was a knock on the door. Then a metal boy with brown hair and cool goggles poked his head out. He was wearing a relatively exaggerated metal ornament and various metal protective equipment. However, the most eye-catching was a self-made sniper rifle. The scope could achieve an optical magnification of 4 times. The accuracy was also strictly controlled and corrected. The young man was not very tall, only about 165 meters. He was also a 3-star mechanic and was good at making firearms and long-range shooting. Captain Cass, Sister Fea, Koslin, long time no see. Cass hurriedly got up to greet them. Koslin was a genius. Cass could tell from the first time they worked together. Koslin could meticulously make various precision mechanical props to deal with the situation at any time, greatly increasing the team's adaptability. Captain, you didn't call anyone else? I met a friend during one of the ghouls. He was only a 2-star magician. I want to ask for your opinion on whether we should invite him to join us in this Destiny Realms event. 2-star? What does he specialize in? Mysticism. When he said this, even Fea, who had a good impression of Cass, was full of doubts. Mysticism had a very wide range of positions, and mysticism scholars did not have much use before they became true knights. Koslin considered that this was the captain's suggestion and spoke more tactfully. Boss Cass, a 2-star mysticism scholar is only a little stronger than normal people in terms of perception, right? I think it's better to call this person over and let everyone get to know each other. Before we go to the Destiny Realms, we can understand his true strength through the bounty mission. If he really has the ability, then let him join us. Chapter 59. Probiotic Fungus Culture Room. This was an experimental culture room built by Lecturer Pasha alone. Unlike the pathogenic fungi in the old sewers, the fungi here were beneficial to the human body. Han Dong had been lying in the fungus culture room for a whole day. There was only one purpose: strengthening the body. This was what Han Dong had discussed with Lecturer Pasha 2 days ago through books and books. He came up with a way to temporarily make up for the weak body. That was to control the fungi and let these probiotic fungi temporarily take root in Han Dong's body. Add a protective layer of fungi on the surface of the organs to enhance the activity and protect the organs. Add tough mycelium between the muscles to strengthen the interaction between the muscle cells. Integrate a kind of slippery spores into the blood to increase the permeability of the blood vessels and the efficiency of oxygen transmission in the blood. It sounded very high-end, and the operation was also very complicated. The risk of letting the probiotic bacteria take root in the body was not small. The final result was that Han Dong's physique was barely improved to that of an ordinary person. The result seemed to be worth it. At least Han Dong would not be out of breath after running 2 steps or sweating after waving his fist twice. It seems not to be a big improvement, but it's actually very meaningful for me. Just as Han Dong walked out of the laboratory, the clockwork device on his wrist vibrated. There were only 3 people that Han Dong had given his contact information: Cass, Lecturer Pasha, and his sister Nina. Hello, who is this? Friend Andwa, it's great to hear your voice. I have a mission with a high bounty here. Are you interested in cooperating? The final reward is estimated to be about the same as the last time we accidentally discovered the ghoul's lair, and there are additional rewards. If it was someone else's invitation, Han Dong would not go as he was currently in a critical period of learning. But Cass was different. A week later in the Destiny Realm, Han Dong had decided to form a team with Cass, who he was familiar with and had a certain level of strength. It would be good to meet him in advance. It just so happened that the probiotic body was completed and he was free. Where do we meet? Come to the Adventurers Guild. I'll wait for you here. This is a medium-sized mission that needs to be discussed in advance. Okay, wait for me for a while. Put away the device. Due to Han Dong's rapid progress, which far exceeded Pasha's expectations, it didn't matter if she took a day off. You have to be back on time before tomorrow. Yes. Han Dong took the elevator back to the ground. When he breathed in the fresh air from the ground again, an unprecedented, refreshing feeling filled his body. Although Han Dong could adapt to life in the old sewer, staying down there for a long time was not something an ordinary person could bear. When they passed through the graveyard, Han Dong's personal butler, a G, crawled out of the ground again. The residents of the great necropolis would be appointed as the lifelong butler of a trainee knight, but the butler would only be a guide, an introduction, and some basic assistance in daily life. A G brought out a zombie horse that was made of rotten flesh and bones from somewhere and used a strange language to communicate with the horse so that it could send Han Dong to the Adventurers Guild. When the horses left the Dark Moon Forest, The gloomy feeling disappeared. At the same time, Han Dong also changed into the bird's beak costume, covering his whole body with a mask and robe to hide his identity. The so-called Adventurers Guild was set up at the intersection of the Academy's Central Street. The huge building was a perfect combination of brass and stone. There was a huge metal plaque hanging on the door, and there were two emblems printed on it. The first one was a knight's emblem of two swords crossed above a white horse's head. The second one was a bounty permit emblem of a dagger inserted in the center of a bounty list. This emblem was issued by the Royal Parliament. Only the guild, church, or local organization that was granted this emblem had the right to issue bounties to trainee knights. The guild building had 7 floors, but each floor was 10 meters high. It was the largest and most imposing building on the Central Street. Every day, when there was a new batch of trainee knights, there would be a large number of trainee knights waiting at the door. After all, trainee knights in the development stage were short of money. Copper coins could not only buy some necessities. In special markets and special trading areas, one could buy some magic items. There were even people who sold items from the Destiny realm, and these special items were very expensive. Mystic Scholar, hello. Are you interested in joining our team to complete a 2-star mission? The targets are 2 ordinary gargoyles. We need to move at night. Han Dong's standard bird-beak doctor costume was extraordinary. He was an elite student of the Mystic Academy. As soon as he got off the horse, he received an invitation from a strong man draped in animal skin. Sorry, I have an appointment with a friend. Han Dong simply declined and stepped into the hall of the Adventurers Guild. At present, there were more than 100 people gathered here. Some were choosing a mission on the bulletin board, and some had chosen a mission and were temporarily recruiting team members here. Han Dong, who was walking toward the stairs, paused midway. Han Dong had only been at the Night Academy for a week, and he stayed in the old sewer all day long. There were very few people who knew him, but now he found a familiar face. Mia Semenovich. At a round table in the corner, Han Dong found a girl of the same grade as him. She was a combat girl who passed the school exam with a score of 93. On the eve of the tutor selection, Mia took the initiative to distribute ointment to the other injured trainee knights, which left a good impression on Han Dong. She came to the Adventurers Guild to complete a mission soon after school started. Maybe she received 2 fate points from a newbie event like me. While Mia was chatting with her companions, she felt someone's gaze on her and immediately looked toward the stairs. However, Han Dong had already turned his head and left along the stairs. Due to the bird-beak costume, she could not see through Han Dong's identity. Mystic Scholar? Which senior is it? Mia did not think too much and continued chatting with her companions. To be able to open a private room in the Adventurers Guild, it seems that Cass's identity is slightly different from ordinary trainee knights. Han Dong came to the Adventurers Lounge on the 2nd floor. He reached out and knocked on the door. Unexpectedly, the door opened immediately, and a strong arm reached out and grabbed Han Dong's neck, forcefully dragging him in. Brother-in-law, long time no see. I missed you so much. How have you been recently? A top student like you must be having a good time in the mystery branch, right? Haha. Cass was too enthusiastic. He directly pulled Han Dong to the chair beside him and maintained a shoulder-to-shoulder posture throughout the whole process. He carefully asked about Han Dong's recent situation. This scene made the other girl on the team, Faya, pout. Jealousy was almost printed on her face. Chapter 60. To explain the doubts mentioned in the previous chapter. The probiotic fungus grows in Han Dong's body. Through bridging, assisting blood transport, and other auxiliary methods, the protagonist's body reaches the standard of a normal person. It's like wearing an exoskeleton to enhance the body's functions. It doesn't integrate into the cells and isn't a part of the body. It won't increase the weight. Main text. Cass's enthusiasm had no other meaning. The ghoul mission a week ago. As the exploration deepened, the event target changed from newborn ghouls to mature ghouls, and then led to a small-scale ghoul lair. The difficulty directly increased to a level that Cass couldn't complete alone. During the mission, The handling of many important aspects depended on Han Dong's ability to adapt. Moreover, when Cass was injured, Han Dong actually killed a mature ghoul by himself. The scene of the malicious spirit appearing at the end was still imprinted in Cass's mind. In Cass's opinion, Han Dong was definitely a top student in the mystery branch and had endless potential. After a round of greetings, Cass still had one arm on Han Dong's shoulder and turned to look at the team members. This is the mystery branch genius I mentioned, Aaron Andwa. He's only 2 stars, but he has now obtained a suitable weapon of destiny through a hidden event. It has 2 abilities, Plague Attack and Evil Spirit Summoning. The Ghoul Lair incident last time was all thanks to the help of Andwa's friend. Otherwise, I might not be able to meet everyone. Cass gave a very high evaluation. However, the higher the evaluation, the closer the relationship between Cass and Han Dong. Sitting on the other side, the more jealous Sophia became. She even began to feel hostility toward Han Dong. It was the kind of hostility that was unique between love rivals. After the introduction, Han Dong also removed his beat costume and pretended to smile. In fact, Han Dong initially thought that he would only meet Cass. He didn't expect that there would be other trainee knights here. Based on the current scene, Han Dong thought, the purpose of calling me here shouldn't be just about the bounty mission. It's very likely that it involves the realm of destiny in a week. The purpose of asking me to carry out the bounty mission this time is to further understand my ability. Cass trusts me, but it doesn't mean that the other members of the team can trust me. Cass continued to turn to his team members. Let me introduce you. This is my companion who went through the Destiny realm with me. Cass first pointed to the girl with wavy blonde hair. From her clothing, jewelry, and flawless skin, it was obvious that she was born into an extraordinary family. She should be the eldest daughter of some family. Kate Sophia, 3-star library, specializes in holy light-type spells. Can release healing spells multiple times. When fighting against darkness-type monsters, she can also become a main combatant. Faye still had an arrogant look on her face. It was difficult for her to get rid of her jealousy. She just smiled and nodded out of politeness before shifting her gaze away. Cass continued to introduce the other one. Arnold Koslin, 3-star machinery, one of the rare double major knights. Not only is Koslin good at manufacturing machinery, but he's also very talented in long-range sniping. Koslin was more proactive. However, his initiative was not based on polite behavior. He had no intention of shaking hands with Han Dong. Instead, he used the magnifying effect of his self-made goggles to carefully observe Han Dong from beginning to end. Mystic-type plague studies? Koslin seemed to have noticed some residual fungi on Han Dong's body. Yes, Koslin nodded. Plague studies aren't bad. Apprentice knights in other fields of mystic-type studies aren't very aggressive. Only plague studies belong to the more aggressive category. If there are any props that need to be processed, you can contact me alone. Small items are free, but large items will be charged according to the internal price. My skills can reach the level of a knight. Don't worry, just leave the materials to me. Okay. Han Dong revealed an awkward but polite smile. Han Dong had seen strange people like Koslin when he was alive. In the past, in university, a young professor from the School of Machinery was also like this. He didn't pay attention to etiquette at all. The moment he came up, he discussed very deep knowledge with others and bragged about himself. Cass seemed to have noticed that the introduction was slightly awkward, so he quickly changed the topic to the main topic. Let's first confirm the bounty mission this time. The special bounty list that Cass had carefully selected was spread out on the table. It was a mission that was of the unclear category and had a high difficulty. It required at least 3 people to work together to receive it. Bounty mission: Ghost Incident on London Streets. Location: 37 London Street. Details: 2 days ago, a vicious murder happened at the Baker family's mansion at 37 London Street, including the owner, Baker Marcellus, who was once an apprentice knight. A family of 6 was killed overnight. Furthermore, a heresy curse mark was found at the scene. The local public security officers immediately locked onto and captured the murderer, but the matter wasn't over. A day after the incident, a local public security officer, Lester Alsop, suddenly died at home that night after inspecting and cleaning up Building 37. In addition, many residents living near the Baker family said that they occasionally saw ghosts floating around the Baker family's mansion. They were mostly active at night, and some people even heard the cries of ghosts. This incident hasn't been determined by the Knights or the local church. It will be announced to the public as a bounty mission for 4 days. If no apprentice Knights accept the mission, or if the apprentice Knights who accept the mission suffer serious injuries, the Knights will investigate. Difficulty: estimated 3-star scale, estimated medium, recommended for a team of 3 or more. Time limit: for days. During the mission, you can avoid asking for leave from the school. Completion condition: find out the nature of the ghost and completely solve it. Bring the relevant evidence back to the Adventurers Association. During the investigation, if the nature of the incident is beyond the description of the bounty, please collect the evidence and immediately contact the local church or the Knights Division. You can voluntarily give up the mission. Mission reward: 1. 500 copper coins. If the difficulty of the incident changes, the maximum reward will increase by 100%. 2. Materials reward: optional materials, self-made equipment, potions. 3. Night credits: 3 points for each member of the team. Note: 1. This incident has a high probability of being contaminated. Please wear goggles and baptize in a local church before carrying out the mission. 2. After completing the mission, you must go to the local church, house of law, and other legal pressure release places to release your pressure. At the bottom of the bounty, there is a hand-drawn heresy curse icon and a hand-drawn ghost portrait according to the description of the surrounding residents. It was different from the common impression of ghosts. The portrait depicted a humanoid creature wrapped in white translucent gauze. From the figure, there was a high probability that it was a woman. At the same time, there were some structures similar to dead wood and tentacles looming under the gauze. Chapter 61. Is this the only choice? For some reason, when Han Dong saw the imprint at the end of the bounty notice, as well as the description of the specter, he felt a strong sense of discomfort. Cass simply explained, Currently, there is only one 3-star bounty that gives supplies. The other bounties that involve supplies are 4-star and 5-star. To tell you the truth, this bounty mission is actually to prepare for the Destiny Realm in a week. We need high-quality supplies, and at the same time, we need money to buy life-saving items. Regarding the Destiny Realm, Cass was certainly more experienced. What he said was definitely correct, so he had to make sufficient preparations. However, Han Dong still had some misgivings as he said, since this is the only 3-star bounty that gives supplies, the risk is naturally very high, right? It is even possible that something similar to the previous ghoul incident will happen. When we investigate the crime scene in detail, we will find that the difficulty of the mission itself is higher than what is described in the bounty notice. It is indeed possible we have to take the risk, but no matter how high the risk of this mission is, it will not be higher than the Destiny Realm. If we cannot even complete the bounty mission, then the Destiny Realm in a week will be troublesome. Friend Andwa, you are currently only a 2-star novice knight. If you do not want to participate, I will not force you. After all, you should be a top student in the mystery department. Developing steadily in the early stages is a wise choice. At this time, Sophia also interjected. Anyway, our team is still lacking a summoner. I have a 3-star control novice knight in my circle of friends. If you leave, I can just let her be the substitute. Han Dong was not affected by anyone's words. He only stared at the bounty notice and silently pondered frowny face Cass team's strength should be in the upper tier among the 3-star novice knight teams. Moreover, I already know Cass' character. Such a righteous person should be very rare in this world. If I can join their team, it will be of great help to my future development. But this bounty mission, he neither rejected nor affirmed, but said, if we accept the bounty notice, when will we set off? Cass seemed to have come up with a preliminary action plan. The residents nearby all said that the spirits appeared at night, and they were basically in the early hours of the morning. Let's rush over now and try to conduct a detailed investigation of the building before nightfall, and then determine the next detailed action. All right, I'll join. It would be best if they could investigate in advance. They could not wait until nighttime to take action. Once the situation became abnormal, they would not even have a chance to escape. Let's go. The way to get to London Street was not by steam carriage, but by steam train. In addition, it was important to note that the London Street mentioned by the mission was not in the civilian area, but on the second level of the Holy City. It was mainly inhabited by middle-class families or families of knights. At least one member of the main family was a novice knight. The streets were open and clean. It was a unique, standalone building. Steam carriages could be seen everywhere. The residents walking on the streets were often dressed in high-class clothing and jewelry that matched their status. This was especially prominent on women. A lace skirt, an exquisite girdle, and a bonnet decorated with bright feathers. As for the men, most of them wore top hats, matching shirts with dark coats, and had their signature mustaches. As for the London Street, it was one of the largest streets in the residential area on the second level of the Holy City. Most of the human survivors in the Holy City were humans from all over Europe. In order to commemorate the country, people in the Holy City named the streets after the important cities of their homeland and retained the architectural style. London Street was one of the typical examples. Most of the survivors from Great Britain lived on the London Street. Dividing the streets and planning the people in this way saved a lot of work for the Population Resource Management Bureau. The second level of the Holy City was still very vast. In order to facilitate the residents' travel, a railway system was built on the second level, and efficient steam trains were used for passenger and commercial transportation. Why was the word efficient added? It was because the trains here could reach a maximum speed of 230 kilometers per hour. Not only did the scientists optimize the efficiency of the steam engine, but they also increased the conversion efficiency of the boiler and the steam engine through magic circles. This made the old-fashioned train, which should have been eliminated, reach a speed close to the high-speed railway in Han Dong's previous world. Even so, it took more than 2 hours to drive from the school to the London Street. In addition, the high-speed railway was free for apprentice knights. They only needed to show their knight certificate to ride it. Due to Cass's special identity, she also applied for a 4-person carriage with a lockable door to ensure that the conversation between the 4 of them would not be heard by other passengers. As soon as the train started to move, Han Dong found an excuse to separate from the 3 of them. I'm going to the bathroom. Okay. He went to the bathroom and locked it. Han Dong's purpose was to not expose himself as a new student. In the following discussion, they would inevitably talk about ghosts and the mysterious mark. Han Dong, as a mysterious apprentice, should at least have some understanding of this. Otherwise, his identity would definitely be suspected, especially Sophia, who had some prejudice against Han Dong. He stayed in the bathroom. Through the clockwork device on his wrist, a special string of numbers was broadcast. When the call was connected, a familiar female voice came from the copper vibrating mouth. It was Han Dong's first mentor, Pasha. What? Didn't you ask for leave to rest? You asked for leave today to go with a group of friends to carry out a bounty mission? You just entered the school. A kid who hasn't even grown all his hair yet wants to carry out a bounty mission? What's your star rating? 3 stars. It involves ghosts. I don't know if Teacher Pasha has any information related to ghosts. Can you fax it to me? After Han Dong said those words, Yi Zichen nodded. The other side of the phone suddenly became silent. After waiting for about 5 seconds, a low voice came out. 3 stars bounty, London Street ghost incident, unidentified type of mission. Nicholas, if you don't want to die, come back immediately. I'm already on the train. Can I trouble Teacher Pasha to fax me a detailed report on ghosts? You really want to go? Yes, if there's really danger, I will take the initiative to give up. This group of people is very good. If I can join them, my chances of surviving in the Destiny realm after a week will greatly increase. After a short period of silence, wait for 5 minutes. I'll send the relevant documents to ghosts, as well as some articles about evil curses. Don't die, otherwise it will be difficult for me to explain to Mr. Black and White. Chapter 62. The fax function was also a part of this clockwork device. However, it required paper and paint to be added. After a while, all the relevant information was sent over. Han Dong activated the high-speed reading mode and memorized the core content within a few minutes. He then returned to the carriage. Old Sewer. Lecturer Pasha held a bounty notice that Han Dong and the others had accepted. She stared at the evil curse mark and the drawing of ghosts at the bottom. This kid has only been in school for a week, and he's already carrying out such a difficult mission. I have to report the situation to Mr. Black and White. If this kid really dies, it'll be troublesome. In fact, Pasha usually did not care about the life and death of students. However, Han Dong's position was too special. Moreover, whenever Mr. Black and White was involved, Pasha would treat it seriously. However, just as Pasha finished writing a message full of honorifics and sent it to Mr. Black and White, she immediately received a reply. You don't have to worry about this. Let Nicholas handle it himself. After receiving such a reply, Pasha was no longer worried and continued her experiments. Asterisk rumble. Asterisk in the train's private room. Cass, Han Dong, and the others were discussing this matter. Naturally, they started talking about the ghost. Sophia, who was prejudiced against Han Dong in the group, immediately asked, "What do you think? I heard that the mystery branch has a unique research and understanding of creatures that are involved in pollution. Friend Andwa, do you have any unique opinions about ghosts? I think that the probability of this incident corresponding to a real ghost is not too high." Han Dong's words immediately attracted the attention of everyone in the carriage. Although there were restrictions in the bounty notices that were directly issued based on the investigation of the local public security officers, they still had to be reviewed by professionals to a certain extent before they were written on the bounty notices. However, Han Dong said that the ghost incident written on the notice did not correspond to ghosts. Nonsense. Sophia, let Andwa tell us his opinion. Sophia's words were interrupted by Cass. She was so angry that her entire face flushed red. She pouted her lips as if she felt that Cass was more biased towards Han Dong. Han Dong explained carefully. Everyone knows the characteristics of ghosts, right? A humanoid spirit that is almost invisible. It needs a layer of cloth, usually white cloth, to form a connection with reality. It usually appears at night. Cass nodded. That's right. These characteristics match the specter drawn on the bounty poster. Friend Andwa, how did you deduce that the target was not a specter? According to our investigation, most spirits are friendly. Their formation has nothing to do with the creatures outside the city walls. Instead, it's due to their attachment to the real world. Only a small number of spirits who died an unnatural death might turn demonic. Moreover, the description on the bounty had never been seen in any records or images of ghosts. Even if they grew tentacles due to the influence of the city walls, they were kept inside the spirit's body and not exposed on a large scale like in the portrait. Could it be a special situation? That's possible, but I'm very concerned about this heresy curse. After thinking about it for a long time, I seem to have seen this type of heresy curse in a medieval book. The origin of the heresy curse, plus the details and characteristics of these non-ghosts. I suspect that the probability of the target being a ghost is low, and there's a high probability that it's related to witches or even both. When Han Dong mentioned the word witches, everyone in the carriage fell into deep thought, including Sophia, who had always been against Han Dong. Han Dong's explanation was undeniable. They could not determine that the target was a ghost based on the description of the residents. This heresy curse mark was also crucial evidence. Cass was silent for a while, then said, "If witches are involved, the difficulty of the incident might increase, but we don't have conclusive evidence to report to the church or the Adventurers Guild and let them increase the difficulty and reward. How about this? We'll reach the streets of London around 1 in the afternoon. Before the sun sets, We'll complete the relevant investigation. Once we've obtained enough evidence to prove the existence of witches, we'll immediately report it to the Order of Knights. All right, after this round of discussion, Shorty Coastland, who was adjusting the accuracy of his sniper rifle, had a better impression of Han Dong. As a mystery apprentice, Han Dong was completely qualified in the field of knowledge. Next, they only needed to see his actual combat ability. Andwa, you're really something. If we can't obtain information about witches in advance, our team might be in danger if we barge into the incident site directly. Cass laughed heartily and hugged Han Dong tightly with one arm, appearing very intimate. For the rest of the time, in order to relax, they chatted about some interesting matters within the academy. Most of the topics revolved around Han Dong. They wanted to know what the daily life of this top student of the mystery branch was like. When Han Dong explained some of the situations in the old sewers, especially when he talked about the plague physique, Sophia, who was at the side, had goosebumps all over her body. After all, they had to establish a suitable fungal environment in the body. Even Cass felt uncomfortable when he thought about his organs and internal cavity being covered in fungus. Everyone was very glad that they did not choose the mystery branch back then. They arrived at the streets of London. Gentlemen, do you want to buy a newspaper? Today, the eldest son of the Roman family won an excellent spot in the library major of the Knight Academy. We have an exclusive interview. At the same time, we have also collected some of the books that novice Knight Roman usually reads. A newspaper only costs 1 penny. Penny was a type of currency in the Holy City. After all, the value of copper coins was extremely high. When trading ordinary goods, such a small amount of auxiliary currency was needed to support the transaction. 100 pence was equivalent to 1 copper coin. Is there any news about 37 London Street? Cass asked. When the newspaper boy heard this, his expression turned ugly. He seemed to know some inside information and asked in a low voice, "You are novice knights?" Cass was very experienced. For a moment, he showed a golden card in his waist pocket. The newspaper boy was shocked and showed 5 fingers. I know a little, but the newspapers don't allow me to publish it. Give me 5 pence, and I will tell you all the information I know. Cass first handed over 5 pence and ordered, "Just take us straight to the road. We will talk as we walk. If you can tell me something that I think is valuable, I will give you extra money." "Thank you, Sir Knight. Follow me. 37th Street is not very far. It will only take us half an hour to walk there." Chapter 63. This newsboy looked to be in his early 14 years old. After meeting a few rich people today, he had no intention of selling his newspaper. Moreover, he had a deeper understanding of the area around number 37 London Street. With such a big incident happening, if he could sell the first-hand information to the newspaper, he could make a lot of money. Unfortunately, the newspaper did not accept any information about 37. It seemed that the higher-ups had given the order not to report it. You don't have to say what everyone knows on the surface. What we want to hear is news that ordinary people don't know. The newsboy racked his brains to bring out some of the things behind 37. At that time, in order to get first-hand information, I rushed to the scene immediately for this incident and saw the murderer who killed Beck's family. It's very strange. The murderer was arrested at the entrance of Beck's house. It seemed that he had been standing here after killing people and never left. What's especially strange is that from his appearance and clothing, he was no different from an ordinary homeless person. Homeless person? Yes. The newsboy was also puzzled. I remember that the owner of the house seemed to be a trainee knight who had not graduated. Even if he didn't graduate, he must be stronger than ordinary people. How could he be killed by a homeless person? I also feel that it's very strange. Cass nodded and tipped the newsboy 5 pence at the same time. The newsboy did not care about the truth of the matter at all. He only cared about the gossip in his mind. He only cared about the problem of money. In the end, the information provided by the newsboy was either known to Han Dong and the others, or he wanted money and guessed the situation based on his own subjective imagination. It did not have any reference value at all. Cass gave the newsboy another 5 pence and sent him away. Cass said in a low voice, I didn't expect the little newsboy to give us such useful information. At least it means that the murder of Beck's family is not right. It's definitely not a simple ghost incident. What do you think? In the team, Coslin, who was good at machinery manufacturing, gave his opinion first. Captain, there's still a problem that needs to be investigated in advance. It's about a security officer who died suddenly that night after investigating Beck's house. He must have been cursed in the house. It's best that we don't enter the scene of the incident directly. Instead, we should act separately and investigate from the security branch and the nearby residents. Since the newsboy can give us information that we don't know, others can also give us information. Yes, for safety's sake, it's better not to act alone. Let's split into two groups. Andwa and I will be in a group, and the two of you will be in a group. Hearing this, Fea looked unhappy. She definitely wanted to spend some alone time with Cass. Unexpectedly, Han Dong suddenly suggested, Captain Cass, why don't you team up with Miss Sophia? You should be active on the second floor. With your 3-star status, you should be able to easily obtain internal information if you head to the Public Security Bureau. That's true. Hearing Han Dong's words, Fea's expression became strange. However, she was naturally happy to be on the same team as Cass, and her hostility towards Han Dong decreased by half. Cass looked at his watch. It's 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Let's try to finish the investigation before 3 o'clock. Otherwise, it'll be even more dangerous to enter the building at night. Yes. Just like that, they split up to investigate. Cass and Sophia had just left. The short Coslin asked Han Dong curiously, why did you suggest that we team up? Han Dong pretended to be a 2-star newbie and said with a grin, haha, Miss Sophia's eyes already have an expression of wanting to kill me. Since I've decided to join this team, I have to establish good relationships in the team. Coslin couldn't help but shake his head and secretly laughed. Sister Fea can't be provoked. Her background is very big, and I can only give in to her in the team. Of course, she herself is a very good and rare holy light mage. In addition, Captain Cass can suppress her, or else I wouldn't be willing to team up with the eccentric Mississippi. Please take care of me in the future, senior. Han Dong was still very modest. Don't say these polite words. First prove your strength. Although our team isn't the strongest 3-star team, we can at least rank in the top 5. We won't accept a team member who doesn't have the ability. In the Destiny space, if your strength isn't enough, it won't be as simple as you dying alone. It will even implicate everyone in our team. Han Dong smiled awkwardly. Coslin also took this opportunity to form a team with Han Dong alone and get to know this new member well. What do you think is the best place to start the investigation? Near the crime scene, or go to the newspaper office to find out more? Didn't Senior Coslin say it before? We need to go to the home of the public security officer who died suddenly to understand the specific situation. The bounty list only gave the word sudden death, which is too perfunctory. Maybe there are some hidden details that the local public security officers didn't discover. After waiting for Cass and Sophia to arrive at the local public security bureau, they sent the address of the public security officer who died suddenly to Han Dong. The two of them immediately went to their destination. To explain, London Street was not just a street, but a large area that included many streets. The numbers represented the street numbers in this area, and a total of 51 streets were included in London Street. After a while, the carriage stopped in front of the old building on Street 31. Knock, knock, knock. There was no response after knocking on the door for a long time. However, Coslin, who was wearing special goggles, discovered that someone was peeping through the magnification function. Through the small gap between the curtains on the second floor, I was looking at the two people at the door. Coslin and the bloodshot. I looked at each other. After half the night, the peeping Tom left from the window, and then he heard slow footsteps coming from inside the building. The door opened, and an old woman with white hair and wrinkles poked her head out and said in a hoarse voice, "You are not from the newspaper office, nor are you public security officers. What are you doing at my house?" Coslin directly showed the night card. We're going to carry out a detailed investigation of Building 37, and we need you to provide information about Lester Alsop. Lester Alsop was the name of the public security officer who died suddenly. Coslin very cleverly added, I don't think that he died suddenly. I suspect that Lester's death was not a simple sudden death. There must be a reason for his death. I hope you can recall if he had any unusual behavior or strange physical characteristics before his sudden death. We want to find out the truth. Come in quickly. I don't want anyone to see me at home. Otherwise, those annoying public security officers will come and bother me again. Han Dong, who had just entered, noticed an abnormal detail. The temperature in the current season was about 18 degrees Celsius. Han Dong, Coslin, and the others were all wearing coats, but the old woman was only wearing a thin, even somewhat transparent shirt and a pair of tattered shorts. Through the clothes, he could even vaguely see that the old woman seemed to have a kind of skin wart, and some dark spots grew on her back. Chapter 64. In the living room, Han Dong and Coslin sat on one side of the sofa. The old lady was making coffee for the two of them in the kitchen. Senior Coslin, be a little careful. Okay. When Coslin stepped into this room, he also became cautious. Not only was the old lady's appearance a little strange, but this room also gave people an indescribable sense of oppression. While the old lady went to the kitchen, Coslin made precise adjustments to the metal sniper rifle that was about 1.8 meters long. Through a kind of shrinking function, he actually shortened the sniper rifle to 15 centimeters. He removed the scope and turned it into a heavy and exquisite heavy firepower pistol that he wore his waist. Once this old lady shows any signs of abnormality, I will kill her immediately. Okay. Han Dong's first impression of Coslin was that he was a scientific researcher. He did not expect that when faced with an abnormal situation, the small Coslin's expression and aura would become completely different. He instantly switched from a researcher to a killer. As long as any foreign object appeared at this moment, the gun hanging at his waist would blow up the foreign object's head. When the old lady came with coffee, she also brought a diary. My youngest son has a habit of writing a diary, including when he came back from his last day of work. He also wrote down today's experience in the diary. When he finished writing the diary, he suddenly died on the desk. I don't believe that those incompetent security officers can help, so I hid the matter of the diary. When the knights come to investigate this matter, I will hand it over to them. You are all excellent trainee knights. You should be able to find the real culprit who killed my youngest son. The old lady's tears could not stop flowing. It was not deliberate at all. It was completely revealing her true feelings. It even touched people slightly. Okay, we will do our best. Coslin was very cautious. He definitely would not drink the coffee. He used leather gloves to prevent direct contact with the notebook. At the same time, he put on his goggles and began to browse the contents of the diary. If what the old lady said was true, the last page of the diary would record the strange things that this security officer encountered during the search. It might become an important breakthrough point in this mission. Caution was caution. In the end, there was still a problem. When Coslin flipped to the last page of the diary, the strange words drawn with oil combined with the strange marks actually made Coslin see some kind of illusion for a moment. Crunch, crunch, the sound of flesh growing. On the diary page, densely packed small eyes suddenly grew out and stared at Coslin at a close distance. Crack. Cracks appeared on the goggles. Dark lines immediately appeared around Coslin's eyes, and oil flowed out of his 7 orifices. It was as if he had seen something evil that his brain could not accept through these small eyes, even if it was hard for him to take his eyes off the diary, even though all kinds of terrifying whispers were echoing in his mind, even though there were waves of numbness in his body as his bones and flesh separated. However, Coslin still gritted his teeth and endured it. With his trembling right hand, he took out the loaded musket at his waist. Pa! The large caliber bullet pierced through the old lady's shoulder and left a large hole in the stone wall behind her. Hee. The old woman, whose shoulder was broken and blurry, didn't feel any discomfort. On the contrary, She let out a kind of laughter, staring at Coslin, who was in unbearable pain. The corners of the old lady's lips curled up in an inconceivable angle. Her eyeballs were so wide that they looked like they were about to fall out. Her facial expression had already surpassed that of a normal person. Then, she quickly left the living room and went to the second floor through the stairs at the end of the hallway. Han Dong didn't chase after her. Instead, he immediately grabbed the diary in Coslin's hand, closed it, and put it into his school bag. It's so serious? At this moment, not only was Coslin bleeding from his 7 orifices, but his entire body was also convulsing. There were a total of 5 cracks on the goggles, and the black lines around Coslin's eyes were still overflowing with black smoke. This kind of contaminated state was several times more serious than when Captain Lucas was contaminated when he looked at the mature ghoul. Who would have thought that they would encounter such a dangerous situation before they even entered the Baker family's mansion? They were just investigating the surroundings. In the bag. Holy water. Coslin shouted a few key words at the top of his lungs. Han Dong immediately opened Coslin's backpack and found a metal bottle with a cross icon printed on it. He immediately drank it for Coslin. The holy water entered his body. Coslin's convulsions were immediately relieved, and a large part of the dark lines around his eyes also faded, but it was not completely healed. However, Coslin was at least freed from the edge of danger. Son of a B****. After regaining his ability to move, Coslin cursed. He immediately put on the spare goggles, loaded his pistol, and hung some self-made holy water bombs on his waist. He wanted to go upstairs and kill this old woman. It seemed that Coslin had become a little impulsive and irritable due to the contamination. Senior Coslin, wait a minute. The situation is more troublesome than we expected. The old lady might have set up other traps on the second floor, and your condition isn't very good. Let's inform Captain Cass first and wait for them to come over before we take action. Coslin gritted his teeth and said, by the time they arrive, this damn old woman might have already escaped. My bullets are made of pure silver, and that shot just now has already caused some damage to her. Now, this old woman must be hiding on the second floor. Try to recover from her injuries. It's a good time to kill her. Inform Captain Cass and ask them to come as soon as possible. But there's no need to wait for them to come over before we take action. This is an important target. We have to take her down. All right. Indeed, if this old thing escaped, they would lose an important clue. Senior Coslin, you're a long-range support type. Let me walk in front. Han Dong put on the bird mask and took the initiative to walk in front. The fingernails on Han Dong's right hand were growing rapidly at a visible rate. At the same time, there was a green plague covering his fingernails. A plague ability that can cause physical changes? How rare. When Coslin saw this scene, he acknowledged Han Dong's strength to a certain extent. For safety reasons, he reminded the contamination this time is very strong. Try your best to reduce direct eye contact with the target. Once the holy water is used up, things will be troublesome. All right, Han Dong was actually not too worried about the contamination. He was only worried about the threat of the old woman herself. After all, when her shoulder was shot by the large-caliber silver bullet, she revealed a strange smile. She did not look uncomfortable at all, and she did not look like she was injured at all. The old lady's body structure might be different from ordinary creatures. When they reached the second floor, Han Dong immediately stopped. It was still daytime, and the sun was shining brightly outside. However, the second floor of this room was pitch black. The reason was that the window at the entrance was completely sealed by wooden planks and iron nails. What was even stranger was that a gloomy aura was constantly seeping out from the floor of the second floor. Miss Chun-Li, yes, I can feel that a kind of evil aura in this room is gradually increasing. Once you're in danger, I'll immediately appear. Sorry to trouble you. I have a vague feeling that the thing we're facing this time is not easy to deal with. Chapter 65, London Street Public Security Branch. Cass, who was flipping through documents in the archives, suddenly received a message from Coastland. Serious pollution source? It appeared in the home of a dead public security officer. To be able to hear the word serious from Coslin's mouth, it meant that the situation was not optimistic. We haven't even entered the site of the incident, and we actually encountered a serious pollution source. Fea, let's hurry over and help them. Bring the information along with us. Serious pollution source. How could it be? Sophia was also quite frightened. Cass was very worried about his teammate's situation. After all, in a closed house, it was not beneficial for Coastland, the sniper, to display his strength. As for Han Dong, although he showed great strength in the last school incident, he mostly relied on his summoned creatures. Han Dong's physical fitness was not as good as an ordinary person's. The two of them immediately put all the files about 37th Street into their backpacks and walked towards the exit of the public security branch. Click! Suddenly, a public security officer stepped forward and directly closed the door of the branch. He looked at Cass and Sophia with a strange expression. Honorable trainee knights, please return the files to us. It is clearly stated that documents related to pollution are confidential. Only professional staff who directly belong to the Order of Knights or the Church are allowed to take them away if they have the relevant permits. Cass's sense of smell was very sensitive. He smelled that something was wrong in the air of the public security branch. He immediately looked around the hall of the public security branch. The public security officers who were supposed to be immersed in their work all raised their heads and stared at the two of them with a strange expression. Fea, give them the files. I can use my family's badge to forcefully take these files away. Give them to them. Cass emphasized again. All right. After Fea handed over all the files, all the people in the branch who were staring at the two of them returned to normal and continued to do their own work. The staff member in front of the two of them revealed a normal smile and reopened the door of the branch. If there is anything you need help with, please don't hesitate to tell us. We will definitely fully assist. Okay. Cass grabbed Sophia's arm and left the public security branch. They walked quickly to the next block until they could no longer see the strange staff member who kept waving goodbye to them. Sophia blushed because Cass took the initiative to take her hand and didn't let go for a long time. Cass, on the other hand, had a grave expression. He was even more uneasy than the last time he had discovered the ghoul's lair. The situation is several times more serious than we thought. Even a London Street Public Security Bureau has a problem. At first, I was confused. How could a security officer enter the Baker Mansion to search and then suddenly die in his home? Now it seemed that a large number of security personnel had entered the mansion to search. One of them died suddenly because he had a strong will and resisted the invasion of the pollution. The rest of the security personnel should have been controlled by the pollution. When Sophia heard this, she also broke away from the beautiful illusion. Her face was full of fear. All the members of the Public Security Bureau were contaminated? How is that possible? This is a national security issue. Shouldn't the Knights deal with it directly? Cass explained, it just happened not long ago, and there's a problem with the Public Security Bureau. The information the Knights got might have been fabricated by the Public Security Bureau. Of course, there was a time limit on the bounty. If we can't complete the mission during this period of time, the Knights will immediately intervene. But by then, it might be too late. There might be a huge secret behind the London Street ghost incident that threatens the safety of the Holy City. Everything had been planned. They manipulated the homeless to create a vile murder incident so as to lure a large number of people from the Public Security Bureau into the Baker Mansion. We only touched on a part of the information, and it's already so terrifying. If we continue to delve deeper, we will definitely discover an even more terrifying truth. Let's not talk about this for now. Let's hurry up and help Coastland and Andrew. The two of them called for a carriage and rushed over at full speed. At the old lady's house, due to drinking pure holy water, Coslin's condition had basically recovered. At present, he would only be affected by minor hallucinations and auditory hallucinations. As long as he focused, there would be no major problems. Of course, he still had to avoid secondary pollution. Otherwise, he might really degenerate or even worsen the situation of aberration. When he saw the eerie and strange scene on the second floor, Coslin's heart also trembled. It was very difficult for his long-range abilities to be used in this kind of restricted space. It would be very troublesome once he was approached. Senior Coslin, can your device pinpoint which room the target is in? There were a total of 3 individual rooms on the second floor, and the doors were currently closed. According to the old lady's previous movement speed, once Han Dong and Coslin chose the wrong room, the old lady was very likely to escape quickly or hide in a dark corner to ambush the two of them. Yes, but it's only limited to sensing. It can't accurately locate the target. Coslin took out an item similar to a resonance magnet from his backpack. It was mixed with high-purity brass. When it was close to the source of the pollution, the vibration would be strengthened, so as to determine the distance between it and the target. It was impossible to directly and accurately locate the target. Senior, I'll search for the target. You support me from behind. Be careful. The thing this time isn't simple. You have to be especially careful. Don't look at the target for a long time. Okay. Han Dong took the resonance magnet and stepped onto the second floor. The yin energy that seeped out from the floor would automatically invade the bodies of living creatures. At first, there would be a cold feeling, and a large amount of accumulation would cause serious symptoms, such as bone necrosis and organ failure. However, Han Dong, who had the protection of the bird-beaked doctor attire and the black robe, could completely isolate this yin energy from his body. He slowly walked past the 3 closed doors. However, the resonance magnet in his hand did not react too strongly. Instead, when he walked to the end of the entrance, the magnet would vibrate slightly. Han Dong immediately recalled the appearance of this building in his mind. It seems to only have 2 floors. In fact, the triangular arch structure at the top of this building means that there is a hidden attic. From the detection of the magnet, it is very likely that the target is hiding above, just as Han Dong was trying to find a way to go to the attic. Coslin, who had a strong affinity for objects and machinery, discovered a mystery on the kerosene lamp on the wall of the entrance. He pressed his ear to the surface of the kerosene lamp. Through the sound of the internal parts colliding when the valve of the kerosene lamp was turned, he discovered a special switch hidden inside. Click! The hidden switch was triggered. A mechanical sound came from the ceiling, and a folding staircase unfolded and descended. Chapter 66. Short blades plague long claws. Firearms modified holy water bombs. The 2 of them took out their corresponding combat equipment. When the 2 of them stepped into the pitch-black attic, Coslin was already prepared. He held 5 small disc-shaped devices between his fingers and threw them out at the same time. When the small mechanical disc came into contact with an object, sharp mechanical legs would pop out from the lower end and pierce into the wall or floor. After stabilizing, the kerosene in the internal storage would ignite on its own for illumination. It was essentially a small, portable kerosene lamp. It was quite suitable for such a closed and dark environment. It could spread out visible light at the first moment, making it convenient for the naked eye to observe directly. At the same time, flames also had a certain restraining effect on low-level evil creatures, changing the geographical advantage. When the fire illuminated, the attic space was larger than imagined. After arriving at the attic, the magnet had an obvious vibration, but there was no sign of the old lady. Instead, there were giant cardboard boxes placed in the attic. The cardboard boxes were just the size of a person. There were many of them, and they were densely packed. It was obvious that the old lady was in one of the cardboard boxes. They only needed to check the cardboard boxes one by one through the intensity of the magnetic vibration to determine the old lady's location. However, there was a certain degree of danger during the detection process because they couldn't directly locate the old lady's location. They had to compare the intensity of the magnetic vibration caused by each cardboard box in order to confirm it. Coslin suggested, "It's too dangerous to go directly. I can shoot every cardboard box in turn, until I hit the target." At this moment, Han Dong asked a key question. We want to capture him alive, right? Due to the influence of pollution, Koslin became more emotional. He didn't think about this problem at all. He only wanted to kill the target to vent his hatred. Yes, it's necessary to capture him alive. Maybe we can find a weakness on this old fellow. Then, we can go deep into the mansion based on the weakness to reduce the risk. Since we want to capture him alive, we can't be too reckless. In addition, there are 28 cardboard boxes. If we're unlucky, we might waste 20 of your specially made silver armor-piercing bullets. These bullets should be expensive and not easy to replenish, right? Later, we might have to go deep into the Baker family's mansion, so we should save some bullets. Senior Koslin, you stand right here. Wait for me to search for him one by one. Once the target appears, please shoot his important joints. I will find a way to suppress it. Han Dong's series of calm analysis surprised Koslin. In the past, it was always him and Cass who jointly analyzed the situation in the team. But now, it was Han Dong who calmed him down, calmly analyzed the current situation, and came up with the best capture-alive plan. For a moment, Koslin's attitude towards Han Dong was completely different. He no longer treated Han Dong as a two-star newbie, and had already considered him as a member of the team in his heart. It's very dangerous to search for it directly. You're not a crusader. Do you have the confidence to deal with this kind of sudden attack? Yes. There was no hesitation in Han Dong's answer. His eyes were filled with confidence and determination. All right, as long as you can suppress the target, the restraining device I brought can completely seal off the source of the contamination. Yes. After the exchange, Han Dong began to move. His left hand was holding the plague doctor's dagger, while his right arm was activating the ghoul's characteristic, maintaining the normal size of his arm. If one used a magnifying glass to observe the places Han Dong had walked past, they would find that there would be some fungal communities where his footprints landed. This meant that Han Dong was in a state of full concentration. Every second, he was consuming the seed's energy in his mind and entering the play control state. The resonance magnet was hung around his neck through a thin string. Buzz, the tremor change was very obvious. Han Dong quickly eliminated nearly 20 cardboard boxes and was walking towards the corner of the attic. The closer he was to the corner, the more difficult it was for Koslin to shoot. However, Koslin did not have any concerns or uneasiness. As long as the target was not completely covered, he could shoot accurately. The firearm had already changed from a pistol to a sniper rifle. He put on a 3x scope and placed it at the entrance of the corridor through a stabilizer. The crosshair was locked onto the cardboard boxes around Han Dong at all times. At the same time, Koslin drank another mouthful of holy water to ensure that he was awake. Cardboard boxes remaining 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Han Dong's gaze was locked onto the cardboard box in the corner 2 meters away. The most dangerous situation has passed. The next step is the capture segment. In Han Dong's opinion, the most dangerous part was the process of searching for a target among a large number of cardboard boxes. When the remaining options were 1, the danger was minimized. Previously, when Koslin shot the old woman, the other party did not let out any screams, and her movements were not affected. Han Dong considered that the damage caused by ordinary bullets should not be fatal to the old woman. Therefore, he reached out his hand and gestured for Koslin, who had already set up his gun at the stairs, to use a small caliber bullet and shoot at the cardboard box. There was only one goal: to force the target out. Boom! A small caliber conventional bullet was fired and accurately shot into the center of the cardboard box. Huh! From the sound, it was obvious that it had shot into the body of a flesh and blood object. The target was hit. But what happened next did not happen as expected. The terrifying scene of the old woman appearing from the cardboard box with a fierce look on her face did not happen. There was silence. The cardboard box did not move at all. There was not even the slightest movement. However, a wisp of thick grayish-black liquid slowly flowed out of the cardboard box and spread on the floor. Han Dong frowned and gestured for Koslin to shoot again. Whoosh, the bullet shot in again. The situation was exactly the same. The cardboard box did not move, and another wisp of foul liquid flowed out of the hole. He pulled the trigger 5 times in a row. As the bullets continued to shoot in, more and more foul liquid flowed out of the bullet holes, and it had completely spread around the cardboard box. The situation was beyond Han Dong's expectations. Plague beam. Han Dong directly shot out a wisp of plague energy from the tip of the short sword and invaded the inside of the cardboard box. Immediately after, the blood that flowed out of the bullet holes also had a certain amount of fluorescent bacteria. Obviously, it meant that the plague was working. But the cardboard box still did not move at all. Is it because the first bullet happened to hit a vital point and cause the target to die? Or has she been enduring? Han Dong gritted his teeth and strode forward. Miss Chun-Li, be ready to appear at any time. He arrived in front of the cardboard box. He bent down. He stretched out his right hand. The moment he opened the cardboard box, a white curtain hidden at the top of the attic descended. At the same time, the old woman in the cardboard box suddenly stood up. This caused the curtain to descend and cover the two of them. Inside the white curtain, Han Dong and the old woman looked at each other at 0 distance. Unfortunately, the bullets that shot at the cardboard box just now all hit the old woman's head, leaving 7 fleshy holes on her face. Something strange happened. Ding, ding, ding. The sound of bullet shells falling to the ground. Due to the squirming of some small tentacles, the bullet shells in the fleshy holes were slowly pushed out, and all of them fell to the ground. Strange tentacles grew out of the fleshy holes and swam on Han Dong's goggles. Close-range contamination. For an ordinary training knight, this was certain death. Chapter 67. Andrew. The sudden fall of the white cloth interfered with the shooting vision. The old woman in the cardboard box jumped up almost instantly. She had determined Koslin's position based on the trajectory of the bullet, so she stood close to Han Dong. The 3 points and 1 line completely overlapped. There was no extra shooting space. 0 distance contact with the pollution source. Han Dong's situation was almost a dead end. Koslin had just acknowledged this young man and already treated him as a teammate in his heart. Faced with such a situation, Koslin took the initiative to abandon the sniper rifle. He grabbed the holy water bomb with both hands and prepared to throw it at close range. First, it could hurt and force the old woman back. Second, it could remove the pollutants on Han Dong's body surface. Just as Koslin approached from the side and was about to throw, something unexpected happened. Crackle. The strange sound of bone and flesh growing. Han Dong's right arm changed drastically, accompanied by flashes of green light. The thin and weak arm that was originally as thin and long as a bamboo pole suddenly grew and thickened. It was replaced with a layer of green and elastic skin. The claws grew to 30 centimeters, curved and sharp. The bird-beak doctor outfit seemed to be unable to adapt to such a thick arm. It automatically removed the cover of the arm, causing the entire arm to be exposed. A giant ghoul arm that hung from the ground appeared, almost as big as Han Dong's body. Due to the formation of the probiotic fungi in his body, Han Dong, who had reached the physique of an ordinary person with the help of the fungi, could barely control this ghoul arm in its complete form. It completed the basic grabbing, tearing, and throwing movements. The ghoul arm was 10% complete. Whoosh! The sharp claws tore open the white curtain. He grabbed the old woman's head and used a huge force to lift her into the air, pushing her forward and pressing her against the wall. Through the light of the fire, it could be clearly seen that there were a large number of strange, polluting tentacles on the old woman's face. Koslin only glanced at it, and his goggles were sizzling. The color of the lines around his eyes also quickly darkened. Fortunately, he did not witness this scene at close range. Senior Koslin, prepare to capture her alive. Following Han Dong's shout, Koslin immediately followed and took out the pure copper restraining device that he had already prepared. Without looking directly at the target, he would lock the target's neck, wrists, and legs. At the same time, he put the old woman into a portable burlap bag and sealed the mouth with a hemp rope. The entire process was as smooth as flowing water. It could be seen that Koslin was very experienced and was very good at binding. It was also at this moment confirmed that the target is completely under control. Han Dong retracted the ghoul arm and fell to the ground, writhing in pain due to the convulsions. However, while Han Dong was struggling, his face was facing down, deliberately covering his face. Disguise. Similar to the zombie incident, Han Dong did not show any signs of being contaminated. Han Dong was merely imitating Costa's painful state when he was heavily contaminated. It was all an act. While he was struggling on the ground, he deliberately kept his face down. He quietly smeared the dirty water flowing around the cardboard box around his eyes, pretending that he was contaminated. Then, with a tearing voice, she said, "Quick, give me the holy water." Koslin hurriedly helped Han Dong up and personally gave him the holy water to drink. Actually, there was another problem here. That was if Han Dong was immune to any form of corruption, then what was the nature of Han Dong? Was he also related to the creatures outside the city? Would he react to the holy water? Han Dong could only test it on the spot. He pretended to be in extreme pain and only drank a small mouthful for the first time. When the holy water entered his stomach, a rather refreshing feeling spread throughout his body. It even swept away a trace of fatigue in his brain. If one had to describe the feeling, it would be the feeling of drinking mint water. There was no discomfort. Han Dong no longer cared about anything and drank a bottle of holy water. Then, he continued to maintain his uncomfortable state. With his face facing the ground, he wiped away a portion of the dirty water around his eyes, leaving only some shallow traces of dirty water. He pretended that the holy water had dispelled most of the corruption. Acting naturally had to have a beginning and an end. Han Dong slowly recovered from his spasming state. He looked like he had crawled back from the edge of death. He propped up his upper body with both hands and panted heavily. Who? Koslin was so shocked that he could not speak. Koslin was also considered an excellent student in the mechanic class. He had once teamed up with a mysterious student, but those mysterious students were completely incomparable to the 2-star trainee knight in front of him. Han Dong's overall strength was beyond his imagination. His overall vision, analytical ability, and strength were all top-notch among the trainee knights of the same level. Next, Koslin showed his fanatical side for scientific research. Koslin immediately squatted down and put on a goggles with a magnifying function. He carefully observed Han Dong's right arm. To be precise, it was the ghoul's arm. The series of changes in form just now was branded in Koslin's mind an unforgettable memory. Friend Andrew, what is the ability of your arm? Plague mutation. Han Dong gave him the professional term that Mr. Black and White had taught him to use to explain the ghoul's arm. When such a term was said, Koslin's eyes widened. 2-star can achieve plague mutation. Moreover, Captain Cass also said that you have a summoning type ability. Friend Andrew, you should be the top among the 2-star mysterious apprentices, right? I rarely interact with other mysterious apprentices, so I'm not sure about the situation. Just as the two of them were resting in the attic, hurried footsteps came from downstairs. Cass and Sophia just happened to arrive at this time. When they saw that this source of pollution had been captured alive, they were extremely surprised. Sophia opened the sack and applied Holy Light Lock to further strengthen the target. She saw that the restraining devices on the old woman's body were all mechanical props from Koslin. Therefore, she thought that all of this should have nothing to do with Han Dong. It was Koslin who suppressed the target alone. Unexpectedly, Koslin, who was at the side, only said this. Friend Andwa, you're really awesome. English translation, please refer to Director Quinton's live translation. Here, it was necessary to talk about the situation 5 minutes ago. The white curtain was lowered, and the old woman suddenly jumped out of the cardboard box. Just looking at the diary could shatter Koslin's goggles and cause the whole thing to be deeply polluted. However, the situation that Han Dong faced was that he was looking at the old woman at a close distance. There were even tiny tentacles scraping Han Dong's face, causing a contact infection. ordinary people would instantly degenerate and corrupt. However, Han Dong did not have any reaction. Everything was normal. Even the old woman, whose mouth was full of filth, was stunned. In her opinion, a trainee knight should instantly degenerate under such circumstances. "It's really fine," Han Dong muttered to himself, the corners of his mouth curling up slightly. After confirming that the old woman only had the ability to pollute and did not have a powerful offensive ability like the ghoul, Han Dong immediately sent a message to Chun-Li, who was in the brain prison. "I don't need your help for the time being. I'll take care of it myself." Before completely activating the ghoul's arm and tearing the white cloth, Han Dong still had a subtle movement. In order not to reveal his secret, under the cover of the white cloth, Han Dong shot out a wisp of plague energy and went straight into the old woman's mouth, completely corroding her tongue and vocal cords. Doing so might reduce the number of confessions. However, Han Dong had to eliminate all hidden dangers that might reveal his secret. Chapter 68. Immune to pollution. In fact, after experiencing the ghoul incident, Han Dong had some suspicions about this unusual passive skill. At that time, Han Dong saw the small tentacles that appeared on the ghoul's body. Such soft, wriggling tentacles were similar to the tentacles that could grow from Han Dong's palm. However, such evil creatures were afraid of holy water. Han Dong could not directly go to the local church to ask for holy water. What if he had a reaction to the holy statue in the church? In addition, due to the lack of time, Han Dong had not taken the time to verify this point. Therefore, the matter of checking if he had a reaction to holy water had been delayed until now. He drank a mouthful of holy water. Not only did he not feel any discomfort or pain, but he felt refreshed and did not feel uncomfortable at all. This also allowed Han Dong to put down the stone that was pressing on his heart. The security management of the holy city was actually divided into several layers. The Public Security Bureau was only the most superficial and rough layer. Its main role was to solve some civil disputes. If there was a real, dangerous incident, it must be solved by the knights. The second layer was set up in each area of the church and the secret knights' intelligence base. They provided help to the apprentice knights who performed tasks in this area. There were professional personnel to review the local incidents. Occasionally, there were also knights stationed inside the church. The churches on the streets of London were integrated with the largest local St. Paul's Cathedral. Currently, the whole Cars team was here. The priest performed the purification ceremony to remove the pollution for the two apprentice knights who were contaminated. The holy light passed through the glass on the top floor of the church and fell vertically on Han Dong and Cars. A warm feeling spread in his body. Han Dong even felt that if he was really injured, his injuries would be completely healed in a short time when he was bathed in the holy light. And it also proved an important point. Han Dong did not have the slightest resistance to these holy attributes. He was as compatible as other humans. The dirty liquid that was smeared around Han Dong's eyes evaporated and disappeared under the holy light. It looked like the pollution was really removed. The ceremony was not over yet. After the holy light bath, the priest handed a whip to each of them and pointed to the private room at the back of the church. "Go release the pressure." Pressure release. Fortunately, Han Dong had also taken the time to look up some basic knowledge during his week of study, other than studying the plague, such as the follow-up treatment methods after being contaminated. No matter what degree of pollution it suffered, after removing the pollution through divine means, a pressure release must be performed. In the early days of the Holy City's establishment, when humans discovered that holy light spells could dispel pollution, they did not realize this. They did not consider how heavy the burden on the minds of the people who suffered from visual pollution was. Some of the seemingly healed knights continued their journey to battle against the higher beings. He was healed by the holy light over and over again. However, the mental pressure in his head had never been completely released. This directly led to the death of the Holy City, event that happened 80 years ago, causing the entire city to panic. In just one day, a total of 38 apprentice knights and 12 knights had hanged themselves in front of their own homes. In the following 3 days, close to 100 knights had committed suicide. The strength of the holy city had been greatly reduced, and even the elders of the council could not sit still. They temporarily issued the Knight Surveillance Draft Law, requiring all trainee knights or knights in the holy city to monitor each other. Those who stopped suicide would be rewarded handsomely. At the same time, the investigation of the suicides was accelerated. Autopsies and hypnotic questioning of the knights with suicidal intentions were carried out. When their autopsies were carried out, it was found that the knights who committed suicide had many serious scratches on their bodies, and some even bit off their tongues. All kinds of unimaginable self-mutilation were done by themselves. At this time, people realized the problem of pressure. Even if the pollution was dispelled by the holy light, the horrible images that reverberated in the mind would bring pressure to the individual, sleeping, meditating, or seeing similar individuals, etc. This was different from ordinary pressure in life. It could be classified as a new psychological disease, which was extremely fatal. Knights who fought against higher beings or their affiliated creatures must receive enough pressure release after being healed by the holy light. Self-flagellation was the most effective and primitive method. Later, humans also discovered that pressure release had a certain relationship with their own habits. Some drunkards could relieve their pressure through hangovers. Some gluttonous guys could relieve their pressure through a sumptuous meal. Some straight-A students could even relieve their pressure through an exam. Of course, some guys who like to drive could also relieve their pressure through a hearty battle. The simplest and most effective method was to self-flagellate in the confessional of the church. Han Dong and Koslin's confessional were only separated by a wall. The heavy sound of the whip entered Han Dong's ears. It could be seen that Koslin was not polite at all. He estimated that every whip could tear off his skin. However, this was very necessary. The corruption that Koslin had suffered this time was not light. As for Han Dong, he used the whip to fiercely whip the ground, pretending to vent. About half an hour, Koslin walked out and was quickly healed by Sophia with the holy light. As for Han Dong, he was wearing a tight bird-beak doctor's outfit. He said that he had already drunk the restorative medicine, so it was not a big problem. Underneath the church was the secret Knights intelligence base on the streets of London. Here, there were staff members who directly belonged to the National Royal Knight Academy, providing free services to the trainee knights. The staff of the intelligence base would undergo a spiritual inspection every week, and the work site was directly under the church. There was no need to worry about them being controlled. The sack containing the old woman had been handed over to the professionals here. At that time, a detailed physical examination report would be generated and handed to everyone. In the private room, after hearing about the terrifying incident in the old woman's house, Cass's expression became solemn. Under the circumstances where she was prepared, she was seriously contaminated just by reading the diary. The old woman's building was still 2 streets away from the incident. It seems that the old woman's mutation must have originated from her son, who suddenly died. It's really not bad that you were able to react in time and capture the target alive. It's all thanks to Andrew's friend. Koslin praised Han Dong again. We'll discuss the details after the old woman's report comes out. Actually, we also found something here, and the situation is even more serious. Is there a problem with the Public Security Bureau's files? Koslin asked curiously. No. I suspect that there's a problem with the entire Public Security Bureau, but there's no concrete evidence yet. As soon as this was said, Koslin and Han Dong were both shocked. What's going on? The public security personnel who have been to the scene of the incident are definitely not the only one who suddenly died. The Baker family's mansion has its own back garden, covering an area of more than 800 square meters. In addition, such a serious murder occurred. It's impossible for the Public Security Bureau to only send one person to investigate. At least 30% of their manpower have been to the scene, or even more. I suspect that the Public Security Bureau has been secretly controlled. Chapter 69. Inside the Knight's intelligence base. Cass drank a mouthful of iced whiskey and gave his conjectures and thoughts, connecting all the information we have obtained so far. All of this was premeditated. The reason why Cass could become a captain was not only because of his leadership and strength, but also because of his ability to observe and analyze events. The current clues were enough to connect the dots and deduce some of the conspiracies that had surfaced. The death of the Becker family was a deliberate suicide. A certain member of the Becker family who was proficient in sorcery used sorcery to control homeless people and killed the entire family in one night. There was only one goal. It was to attract the attention of the local Public Security Bureau. The Becker family was considered a noble existence in London Street. They had to do their best to search the mansion. Therefore, a large number of public security personnel were involved. Thus, they achieved the goal of attracting a large number of people to the mansion within a short period of time. Then, they were controlled through some sort of sorcery. Only one public security personnel with strong willpower tried to resist, but with his ordinary human-minded body, he was unable to fight against the evil thoughts, resulting in his sudden death at home that night. It was important to note that it was the public security personnel who were controlled. It was killing two birds with one stone. The Public Security Bureau was controlled, and this matter could be concealed to a certain extent so that the truth of the matter would not spread to the church and the knights in a short period of time. Of course, with such a big incident happening to the Becker family, the night spies would definitely be watching in the dark. The Public Security Bureau would not give false information completely. Therefore, they gave a ghost case according to the oral narration of the nearby residents and reported it to the church with some real information. They let the knights determine that the difficulty of this incident would not be too high, so they would hand it over to the apprentice knights. And we happened to be the team that won the prize. Cass's speculation, based on the current clues and information, was very convincing. Obviously, someone was controlling all of this from behind, but the other party's goal was still unclear. What is the purpose of controlling a large number of ordinary people? When Coslin asked this question, Sophia seemed to have realized something and stood up nervously. We can't continue discussing here. We have to report the situation and let the knights seal off the Public Security Bureau. Bring all the suspected, controlled people to the church for baptism. I have a very bad premonition. Han Dong glanced at Sophia, who had her hands in front of her chest due to nervousness. In fact, Han Dong also had this feeling, a very bad feeling. As the captain, how could Cass not consider the seriousness of the matter? Fia and I weren't attacked in the Security Bureau, and we didn't get enough evidence. We just judged that something was wrong with the security personnel from a subjective point of view. It was purely based on his own speculation, and there was no concrete evidence to be provided to the knights. They wouldn't act rashly and seal off the local Public Security Bureau, which would affect the people's morale. In the absence of evidence, at most 1 or 2 knights would investigate as ordinary people. If there is no problem with the Public Security Bureau, and it is just an abnormal reaction of the staff under too much pressure, I will be severely punished. Moreover, the Public Security Bureau might have made preparations to deal with the investigation team of ordinary knights. It would be best to have evidence so that the knights could completely seal off the Public Security Bureau. Try to obtain evidence from the physical examination report. At this moment, Han Dong took out the diary that he had kept in his backpack for a long time. That's right, it was the diary that had caused Coslin to fall into deep corruption. It should record what the security officer who died suddenly saw and heard when he was investigating the Baker family's mansion that day, as well as his experience and mental state before his death. Perhaps it could be used as evidence. Yes, but there was a problem now. How to check the diary? It was important to know that when Coslin was wearing the goggles to read, the lenses shattered on the spot. Although Han Dong wasn't affected and could read as much as he wanted, he couldn't expose his secret. This secret night intelligence station should have higher strength goggles provided. Fia, with the protection of your holy light, you can read it? Yes. When she felt that she was needed by Cass, Fia was not afraid of any danger. After a while, Cass brought over a pair of special goggles. It was thick and huge, and it increased the resistance to corruption by simply thickening the lenses. It was not convenient to carry around on a daily basis. Fia took out the Staff of Fate and gently tapped it on her forehead. Circles of golden halos spread out between her eyebrows, increasing her resistance to corruption. The reading of the diary officially began. During this process, Fia cast many spells to maintain the intensity of the holy light. When she read some strange words, black, filthy tears would flow from the corners of her eyes and instantly evaporate when they fell to the ground. Smack! She closed the diary. When she finished reading, Fia's whole body was emitting white steam, and she looked extremely weak. Cass immediately went forward and hugged her. "Fia, are you okay? Brother Cass, don't worry about me. Hurry. Hurry up and give the diary to the knights and let them take action. It's already written in the diary that half of the public security personnel have entered the Baker family. They all saw strange things. It's a source of infectious pollution. Maybe it's really related to evil witchcraft." Okay. He only handed it to the messenger in the night intelligence station, and the other party would quickly deliver the evidence to the higher-ups. He only needed to wait for the night headquarters to make a decision to change this bounty mission. Cass estimated that his group would directly receive the bounty reward, and then the knights would take over and deal with this matter. 20 minutes passed. A staff member of the intelligence station came to the room where Cass and the others were. Due to the important information provided, you can directly receive 40% of the original bounty reward. The bounty mission, Ghost Case on London Streets, has been changed to Mysterious Witchcraft Incident of the Baker Family, and the scale of the execution has become a 3-star assistance mission. You will be led by a regular knight to purge the Baker family. Cass was shocked. Assistance mission? The staff member replied, "This is a decision made by the higher-ups. Due to the seriousness of the situation, it must be resolved by at least one night." What about the public security branch that has fallen? The public security branch has been fully suppressed by a knight active nearby. However, the problematic public security personnel have already changed shifts and left half an hour ago, so they have not been able to arrest them. According to the feedback from the residents of Street 37, 15 minutes ago, these public security personnel who had changed shifts and left brought their family members into the Baker family's mansion. What? They brought their family members in? How many people are there? At least 200 people. The situation had become more serious than expected. Chapter 70. The staff member of the intelligence station continued. Due to the urgency of the matter, after discussion with the knights, you only have 1 hour to prepare. Within 1 hour, if you do not find a knight to guide this mission, the knights will directly appoint one. During the mission, the clockwork device in your hands will activate record mode, recording your entire experience, including clues collection, exploration progress, target killing, and other details. After completing the mission, the rewards will be distributed according to the record. If you rely too much on the knights, you will not be able to receive any rewards. Cass was somewhat hesitant, asking the staff member, "Can I see the revised bounty?" Of course. The staff member handed over a white bounty that was different from the others. Assistance-type bounty mission like this was very rare. After all, it was very rare for a large-scale strange event to occur in the Holy City that required a knight to personally deal with it. This kind of assistance mission not only gave a high reward, but also allowed one to learn the combat experience of an official knight in the process. Once it was given out, a large number of teams would rush to receive it. Cass looked at the highest reward on the bounty and tried to suppress his joy in front of the staff member. "Okay, we will find a suitable knight leader within 1 hour. Please pay attention to the time." After the staff member left, Sophia immediately asked curiously, "Brother Cass, what is the reward?" "A piece of destiny equipment, and you can choose it yourself." "What?" Apart from Han Dong, who did not have any reaction, the other 2 members of the team stood up in shock. From this, it could be seen how rare a piece of destiny equipment was for an apprentice knight. Han Dong stared at the dagger in his hand, feeling like he had accidentally picked up a treasure. Cass laid out the bounty list. It was clearly written on it, frowny face reward. Assistance-type missions will be divided into 4 grades according to the record: fail, pass, good, and excellent. 1. As long as a team reaches the pass grade, each team will receive 600 copper coins, material rewards, optional materials, self-made equipment, potions, and 5 night credits per person. 2. Teams that reach the good grade will receive additional rewards. Good grade. Receive an additional 400 copper coins. Excellent grade. Receive an additional piece of destiny equipment that does not exceed the good grade. The basic reward will also be increased by 15%, 30%. If we can reach the excellent grade, the team will have 1 more piece of destiny equipment. The overall strength will have a qualitative change. Next, the most important thing was to find a leader. The incident this time was not simple. More than 200 ordinary people had been controlled and entered the mansion. Coupled with the fact that the incident involved evil witchcraft, it was possible that they were conducting some sort of sacrificial ritual. An hour is enough for things to worsen. We must find a knight who is strong enough and meets the requirements. It is stated on the bounty that the knight we invite must not be higher than a corporal. After Cass Jane was about to explain the situation, Sophia gritted her teeth. She grew up in a special family and had read a lot of things for books. It was as if he had connected the current incident with some of the terrifying records in the book. Fea muttered, "If there are really 200 people sacrificed, there's a certain possibility that the things outside the city wall will be lured in. It will be very difficult for ordinary knights to deal with them. I'll go ask my sister about this." "Fea, is this okay?" Cass seemed to be very clear about Fea's family matters and asked with concern. "Usually, I won't bother my sister about some troublesome matters. But this time, the incident is very strange. If my sister can agree, at least our lives won't be in danger. If my sister doesn't agree, Brother Cass, you can go find someone else. I should be able to reach my sister in half an hour." "All right." After Sophia left, Han Dong curiously asked about this young lady's family matters. "Miss Sophia's sister is—" "Friend Andwa, please be sure to keep this matter a secret. If it is leaked, Fea may be in danger." "Yes, I will definitely keep it a secret." Fea's background corresponds to a hereditary noble. As for what class, I am not clear. Her sister is the famous Retribution Knight, Celeste. She serves the Holy Knights. Because she is still young and has just joined the Knights not long ago, she has not been given a military rank yet. Her actual strength is comparable to some of the vice corporals. She just turned 28 this year. If Han Dong was a native of the Holy City, he would definitely be shocked speechless. But he did not know much about this, and his expression only changed slightly, revealing an awkward but polite expression of surprise. Cass continued to explain, "At first, we teamed up with Fea and did not know her background, until we escaped from the Grim Reaper's scythe and successfully passed through the Destiny Realm. Fea's sister, Celeste, personally came to the teleportation exit and took the seriously injured Fea away. Later, Fea contacted us and quietly explained everything. Of course, she only mentioned her relationship with Celeste and did not mention her family background." Han Dong nodded. "Yes, if such an excellent knight is willing to help, this mission should be stable." While they were waiting for Fea, the examination of the old woman who was captured alive was completed. The physical examination report was handed in by the staff. The 3rd floor of the Holy City, the stronghold of the Holy Knights, Holy Sanctuary. Because the streets of London were close to the Poseidon stairs that led to the 3rd floor, Sophia quickly arrived at the sanctuary within half an hour and saw her sister in the Central Garden, who was undergoing relevant training. Her golden hair was draped over her white armor like a waterfall, undulating and shining with golden light. Even though the distribution and shape of her facial features were very similar to Fea's, in this female knight's eyes, there was a sense of vigor, and an invisible aura enveloped an area of 10 meters around her. Unlike Sophia, Celeste majored in Crusader, and in the following branch of the talent tree, she was classified as Holy Army, a type of close combat knight who used holy light as a weapon. Fia, why are you not studying in school and running over to me? Sister, I want to ask for your help. Sophia was completely like a docile, even slightly timid kitten in front of her sister, slowly handing over the white bounty. Celeste used some method to confirm the knight's insignia branded on the bottom right corner of the bounty. The which incident, hundreds of ordinary people were implicated and completely corrupted. Fia, your luck is really not bad to actually let you encounter such a thing on the second floor. Who else is in the team? It's the two who survived the Destiny realm last time, plus a 2-star Mystic type newbie. 2-star Mystic type? It doesn't match your team's level, right? This is recommended by Captain Cass. It's very special, seems to be a top student in the Mystic type. Okay, I'll lead the team for this auxiliary mission. Time is tight. Let's set off immediately. Thank you, sister. Chapter 71. Inside the knight's stronghold. Han Dong glanced at the physical examination report as fast as he could. In the eyes of Cass and the others, Han Dong just flipped through it casually. In fact, he had already memorized the important information in his mind. Captain Cass, I'll leave the report to you. I'll go to the security bureau. Maybe I can get some useful information. Do you want me to go with you? Cass looked at him with concern. The unstable elements in the security bureau have been eliminated. There must be a knight's informant among them. There won't be any danger. I'll go out for some fresh air. Cass knocked on the clockwork mechanism. Okay, let me know if there's anything. The main purpose of Han Dong sneaking out was not to go to the security bureau to collect evidence. The group of staff members who were controlled must have burned all the relevant information before leaving the bureau. Even if there were some files left, it would be false information. Han Dong sneaked out because of the diary. Since the incident was not over yet, the diary, which served as both evidence and clue, was returned to Han Dong's school bag. In addition to the information obtained from the physical examination report, Han Dong decided to check the contents of the diary carefully. Intuition. Han Dong thought that he might find some important information in the diary. 5 minutes later, Han Dong was standing in front of the building where the old woman was captured alive. As the incident was not over yet, the security personnel would not come to these places related to the incident. Han Dong could enter at will. He sat on the soft sofa in the living room. On the coffee table, the coffee the old woman made for them had gone bad. A layer of honeycomb-like porous floated on the surface. If he drank it before, he didn't know what would happen. First, let's talk about the physical examination report. After a professional team of knights examined and analyzed the old woman's condition, the comprehensive results were as follows: frowny face degree of contamination, deep degree of physical corruption, medium to high. Only the human skin remains intact. The internal body has been completely corrupted. Type: pure contamination. The individual is not very aggressive. It mainly pollutes the target. Note: evil imprint found on the surface of the individual. The function of the imprint is to strengthen the connection between the individual and life outside the city and deepen the mutation. Next, Han Dong placed the diary flat on the coffee table and was about to flip through it. To be on the safe side, he put on the bird mask. Although Han Dong knew that he was unusual, it was better to be safe than sorry. There was nothing wrong with the first few pages of the diary. It recorded the deceased's life before his death. From the words, it could be seen that this security officer was a very strong-willed and opinionated person. Han Dong flipped through the pages. The contents of the diary soon reached the murder case at the Baker family. There was a sentence in the diary that caught Han Dong's attention. Original diary. There are many suspicious points about the Baker family's incident. How could a vagrant kill Mr. Beck, who was once an apprentice knight? There's obviously a big problem with this matter, but Morrison insists on having us ordinary security personnel search the Baker family first. When we find more suspicious points and evidence, we'll report the matter to the higher-ups. This is a complete joke with our lives. Morrison obviously wanted to take advantage of this matter to get a promotion. I really don't know how this idiot was chosen as the sheriff. Sigh. There's no room for change. Tomorrow, half of the colleagues will search the Baker family. With so many people, the search time will be greatly reduced. I can only hope that tomorrow will be smooth sailing. So that's how it is. No wonder after the incident, it was the security personnel who searched the place instead of the knights. It turns out that the branch leader did it on purpose. He wanted to use this matter to get a promotion. A foolish decision made by an ignorant person led to such terrible consequences. The next page should be the deceased's last notes. I hope to get some important information. Han Dong carefully turned to the next page. Sure enough, there was a change. A faint layer of black mist came out from the paper. Dense eyes grew from the surface of the paper. These eyes were slightly bigger than rice grains, similar to the compound eyes of insects. They grew on the paper and stared at Han Dong with point-shaped pupils. Crack! The goggles made a sound similar to a shattering sound. The bird beak, Dr. Suit, immediately turned into the crow's original form and retracted into Han Dong's body. It could be seen how strong the contamination on the diary was, and it was a visual contamination that specifically targeted the eyes. The crow was stimulated and hid in order to save its life. This led to Han Dong not having any anti-contamination measures and directly looking at the eyeballs on the diary. Time passed by, and Han Dong's face was normal. He didn't even have a reaction of trypophobia. He even took the initiative to reach out and touch these grain-sized eyeballs. The diary had a certain level of consciousness. It thought that Han Dong's behavior was provoking it, thus increasing the output of contamination. The densely packed small eyes gathered towards the center and turned into a round eyeball twice the size of a normal one. The pupil was imprinted with the evil curse mark recorded on the bounty poster. While I was looking at Han Dong, a filamentary tentacle slowly extended from the surface of the eyeball and kept approaching Han Dong, preparing for a more invasive contact contamination. How about this? In the face of such a dangerous contamination situation, Han Dong was not nervous. Instead, he was in a state of immersion and intended to take this opportunity to conduct an experiment. His right hand stretched out to the front of the diary and let the eyeball's tentacles scratch his palm. Except for some itchiness, there was no other discomfort at all, indicating that contact contamination was still ineffective. Just as these filamentous tentacles try to further pierce Han Dong's palm skin and invade the flesh and blood inside. Squeak, squeak, squeak. The creeping sound of something slippery. Han Dong used the ability of the faceless skull, and a thick and speckled tentacle grew from his palm. Just from the appearance of this tentacle, it was obviously not on the same level as the filamentous tentacles around the eyeball. With the growth of the tentacle, something unexpected happened. Reverse invasion. The tentacle that grew from Han Dong's palm wriggled on its own and invaded the eyeball on the surface of the diary. Gurgle, gurgle. With the contraction of the tentacle body, it seemed to be absorbing the essence of the eyeball. A scream echoed in the room. The eyeball was completely squeezed dry and disappeared in a short time. The contamination on the diary was completely eliminated. More importantly, a rich and pure liquid substance flowed along the arm into the seed in the head to replenish the mysterious energy. Chapter 72. Staring at the untainted diary, he felt the freshly replenished energy essence in his head. Han Dong showed an extremely rare, exaggerated smile. Because Nicholas's face was rather sharp, this smile gave the illusion that the corners of his mouth were almost connected to his ears. Perhaps very few people could truly feel Han Dong's excitement at this moment, because through this matter, he'd thought of countless benefits. There were very few ways to replenish the seed, this energy. Among the abilities that Han Dong currently possessed, he could only replenish this seed, this energy through conversion and absorption of other plagues. Now, however, there was another way to obtain energy, and it was extremely efficient. Moreover, it was through direct absorption to obtain high-purity energy from the body of the source of pollution. In this world, the main enemy of mankind is the high-level life forms outside the city walls. If I can directly extract energy from their bodies, I can ensure that I am in a state of energy saturation at all times. Not only will my survival rate be greatly increased, but this is also a method to deal with them directly. Still, before I find a suitable reason to explain, don't expose this ability. Han Dong quickly finished reading the contents of the last page of the diary. He read the entire process of the security personnel's investigation into the mansion, as well as a more suspicious location. This information would be very useful when going deeper into the incident site. Let's go back and assemble. If this incident is led by Fei's sister, the danger should be minimized. Hopefully, I can get through this safely by only using my ability to deal with plagues. When Han Dong walked out of the building, a carriage just happened to pass by. To the church. As soon as Han Dong got into the carriage, he found that there was another person sitting in the carriage. If it had been when he was alive, Han Dong would have hated this kind of situation the most and would have definitely called to complain. But the situation now was different. The person sitting in the carriage was a man wearing a white suit and a black mask. Mr. Black and White. In Han Dong's opinion, if someone of Mr. Black and White's level was not in the academy, he should be in the core area of the holy city. He should not have appeared on such an ordinary street, and it was even more impossible for him to meet him in the same carriage. It must be a meeting with a purpose, and it must be related to this bounty. However, it was impolite to ask the purpose directly, so Han Dong decided to play dumb first. "What can I do for you, sir?" "There's a problem with the bounty mission you accepted." Han Dong immediately replied, "We have already submitted the problem we found. After the decision of the knights, the original ghost incident has been changed to an auxiliary mission." What I mean is, even after the change, there's still some problems. Han Dong was shocked. He seemed to understand what Mr. Black and White meant. "Sir, what do you mean? You want me to quit?" "No, continue. Then take this thing out and use it at a critical moment." From Mr. Black and White's sleeve, he handed over a mysterious scroll that was wrapped in black threads. "Sir, this is..." Once the scroll is opened, it will erase the memories of everyone around it to a certain extent. Do you understand what I mean? "Thank you, sir. How do I block the Clockwork Device's recording function?" "You don't have to worry about that. It will only record what you did, not what ability you used. In short, you don't have to worry about anything. If any information leaks out, I will take care of it for you privately." The words ended. A black vortex appeared in the center of Mr. Black and White's body. His body twisted inwards and finally turned into a black crow that flew out of the car window. Mr. Black and White really can predict everything in advance. He really helped me a lot. However, Mr. Black and White specially came to remind me, which means that this incident is really not simple. There might be unexpected trouble. Han Dong was very glad that he chose the mystery branch and met Mr. Black and White. He put away the scroll and got out of the car in the church area. In a special stable on the side of the church, Han Dong saw a snow-white horse with a silver-white mane that had not been modified in any way. For a moment, Han Dong was stunned by the sight. He had never seen such a beautiful horse. There was a high chance that the owner of this white horse was Sophia's sister. Have they already arrived? Just as Han Dong stepped into the church, an aura came from inside. Asterisk clang. Asterisk the church door opened. A female knight with long, wavy blonde hair walked out with her head held high. Her gaze met Han Dong's at the door. However, Han Dong did not have any exaggerated reaction. He just smiled awkwardly. "Are you the last member of the team? Can't you see how urgent the situation is? You actually still have the mood to stroll outside. Hurry up and go to the scene of the incident to start the operation. There is a high chance that more than 200 civilians will be sacrificed as living sacrifices. Things will become very troublesome." Okay. Celeste walked straight to her white horse. She did not wait for Kars and the others at all and went straight to the scene of the incident. "Friend Andwa, don't mind. A noble knight like this is indeed a bit harsh with her words. Let's hurry over as well." It just so happens that we have already completed divine baptism in the church. Divine baptism will give the host a buff enhancement. Resistance to pollution will increase for 2 hours. This process was already completed when Han Dong and the others released their pressure. They continued to call for a carriage and went to the scene of the incident, Baker House on 37th Street. Currently, in order to ensure that the nearby residents would not be contaminated, all the residents in 37th Street had been evacuated. The 2 entrances to the street were guarded by a normal knight. Any intruders with abnormal conditions would be killed by the knight. After showing the identity card of a trainee knight, Han Dong and the others finally arrived at the entrance of the mansion with the Baker sign hanging on it. It was bigger than expected. It was a 2-story mansion with an area of nearly 1,000 square meters and a backyard. It had a gloomy architectural style, stone blood plants that covered the entire building. There was also a heavily corroded hollow black iron door. It had only been a few days since the whole family was killed, but this mansion gave people a feeling that it had been abandoned for years. I already understand the basic situation. Put on the goggles and follow me directly into the mansion. I will kill the main target. You just need to help clean up the contaminated humans. After saying this, Celeste extended her right hand vertically and seemed to be chanting some kind of prayer. As she pulled down her right hand, a halo of blessing descended on everyone in the team. King's Blessing increases the basic attributes of all team members and adds holy damage to their attacks. After releasing the group buff, Celeste changed into battle mode and took out a steel flail with holy words carved on it. The back of her left hand flashed, and a medium holy light shield appeared. Holy Army, Cass muttered. He actually wanted to develop in this direction in the future. Knight Celeste stepped into the front yard and walked towards the mansion's entrance. Asterisk boom. Asterisk the door was kicked open. Celeste, who was already prepared for battle, frowned. The interior of the mansion was empty. Not even a mouse could be seen, let alone a living person. Chapter 73. Holy Light Perception. As a Templar, Celeste had both holy and knight abilities. She stepped out, and a warm holy light spread from her feet. The halo of light spread to every corner of the Baker family's mansion. The feedback she received was still empty. No one, Carr's team, who followed closely behind, was also surprised. They thought it would be a big battle, but the situation was a little strange. Han Dong stared at the empty mansion. Most of the furniture and decorations inside had been removed, and most of the curse seal had been removed. It had lost its pollution effect. Celeste immediately gave an order. It's impossible for hundreds of people to disappear into thin air. You two will split up and search this building. If you find anything, inform me immediately. No one is allowed to act on their own. Okay. The split-up method was the same as before. Kars and Sophia were in a team of 2, and they cooperated with Celeste to search the first and second floors of the mansion in detail. Han Dong and Ko Slin were in a team, and they were in charge of searching the back garden area. As no one took care of the back garden for many years, the height of the weeds had already exceeded their knees. Other than a puddle of foul-smelling water, an empty space with a huge cursed seal, and a pavilion covered in stone blood plants, there was nothing else worth paying attention to in the back garden. The huge curse seal had also been destroyed and did not have any pollution effect. There were tree-shaped marks on the empty space where the curse seal was. There seemed to be a large tree growing here in the past, but it had disappeared for some reason. Han Dong went directly to the puddle of foul-smelling water. Senior Ko Slin, can you find the drain of the pond? Yes. Ko Slin, who had worked together before, had a completely different attitude towards Han Dong. When Han Dong pointed this out, Ko Slin immediately connected. Using a retractable iron rod device, he detected the metal drain at the bottom of the pond and opened it. I'll go down and take a look. Senior Ko Slin, you go to the pavilion and look for clues. Okay. Han Dong used the ghoul's arm as leverage and carefully jumped into the 4-meter-deep pond. The bottom of the pond was covered in moss, as well as some black plants. When Han Dong used his hands to peel away the moss, he found another giant rune that was the same as the one on the bounty poster. Unlike the rune he found before, this rune was very complete. My luck is pretty good. Looks like I found the right person. When the cursed seal sensed the approach of a living person, it immediately emitted a crimson luster. At the same time, numerous small eyes grew out and looked at Han Dong. Sigh. Han Dong could only stretch out his hand with an awkward smile and absorb all of these small eyes. The reason he chose the back garden and pinpointed the location of the pool was because of the last page of the diary. The sudden death of the security officer was caused by an illusion of an eyeball in the water when he was searching beside the pool, which led to the subsequent contamination and sudden death. Han Dong, who had absorbed the eyeball and destroyed the curse mark, pretended that nothing had happened. He also cleaned up the mark to avoid arousing Celeste's suspicion. Han Dong, there's a faint evil aura about 3 steps to your right. Suddenly, a voice reverberated in Han Dong's mind. Unexpectedly, Miss Chun-Li was also paying attention to the external situation at all times. He fully activated the power of his ghoul arm and forcefully pried open the tiles on the ground according to Chun-Li's instructions. As expected, he found a hidden switch that could be controlled by hand. Senior Ko-Slin, please inform everyone to come over. I have found something here. Not long after, the group of people who had searched the mansion to no avail all came to the back garden. Staring at the secret switch Han Dong discovered, Celeste only said calmly, "You did a good job. Not bad. Come up first." Han Dong climbed up the pool. Celeste immediately changed the form of the light shield in her left hand, turning it into a whip of light that accurately wrapped around the switch at the bottom. She pulled with force. Buzz! A secret door hidden at the bottom of the pool opened up, corresponding to an incomparably dark underground passage. A secret sacrificial ritual is being carried out underground? This whole incident has been planned for a long time. Sister, are we going down? No. The dangerous location below might even be a trap with a medium or high degree of contamination set up in the passage. If you follow me, you will only be a burden. Also, there's a problem with the mansion. At least when I started searching the mansion just now, I vaguely felt that there should still be some evil beings hidden in the mansion. I will go down alone to explore and find the sacrificial area. You guys stay up there and clean up the Burker mansion. If I need help, I will naturally contact you. Sister, you have to be careful. Sophia was very worried. Don't worry, the things outside the city walls won't take my life. Naturally, there are no evil beings that can threaten my life in the holy city. After saying that, Celeste looked at Han Dong, who was wearing a bird-beaked doctor's outfit, to be able to quickly discover the hidden switch of this secret passage. Are you a student majoring in divination? No, my major is plague studies. I found a switch through the fungus. Not bad. You guys must take good care of Sophia. If I find that she is injured and you guys are fine, don't blame me for peeling off your skin. Definitely. Cass immediately replied. War Knight, be careful. The conversation ended. Celeste went deep underground alone. Han Dong's team returned to the mansion and began to search and eliminate the remaining evil beings in the mansion. It was already dusk. To ensure safety, Ko-Slin hung portable kerosene lamps in various places in the mansion to ensure that there was sufficient light in the mansion during the mission. The 4 of them began a carpet search of the mansion. Half an hour passed, but they did not find anything. Han Dong did not have any clues either. There were no clues or information at all. The books in the study were all cleared, and the only diary they found had its key pages torn out. Night fell. The kerosene lamps set up in advance illuminated the entire mansion. The 4 of them gathered in the study, slightly anxious. What Cass was worried about was that Celeste was too powerful. She could clear out all the pollution sources and evil cultists in the underground area alone, and they did not do anything at all. At that time, they would be assessed as failing and would not receive any rewards. However, Celeste had emphasized that no one was allowed to go down without her instructions. I'll go to the other rooms and search again. There might be some hidden compartments that we missed. Just as Cass walked out of the study, Han Dong seemed to have received some signal and quickly exclaimed, "Cass, be careful." Cass had already pushed open the wooden door completely. A woman with root-like tentacles on her body and hidden in a white cloth floated past the door. A heart-palpitating laughter echoed in the mansion. "You, ghost. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.